Chapter 30, 197. I told you not to let him stay in the arena. You guys just wouldn't listen. Especially you old bastard. The vice leader was furious. He glared at the Hall of Famers and roared. If it weren't for the Hall of Famers persuading him, he would definitely forcefully take Qin Feiyang out of the arena. This is fate. The Hall of Famers sighed. He didn't want this to happen, but what could he do? It had already happened. He couldn't change it. However, among these disciples, there were also some who were secretly gloating. These people didn't have any hatred for Qin Feiyang. They were purely jealous. "Ha ha!" The black dragon suddenly laughed and said jokingly, "Look at how nervous you guys are. I'm just teasing you. He's not dead. I'll bring him back to my cave abode now to reconstruct his body and divine soul." After saying that, the black dragon flew toward the heavenly peak. He's not dead? Everyone was stunned. They immediately glared at the black dragon's back. This bastard was actually playing with them? However, it was great that he wasn't dead. Zhao Xiaojin's sorrow turned into joy. He was more and more impressed with Qin Feiyang. The fact that the black dragon could successfully pass the tribulation was definitely related to Qin Feiyang. The tribulation of a perfection stage dominator. How did this guy do it? Old Manny, are you still going to scold me? The Hall of Famers came back to his senses and glared at the vice leader. The vice leader smiled awkwardly. Only I have a good temper. If it was someone with a bad temper, you can try it. The Hall of Famers snorted coldly and turned to leave. Shameless. The vice leader glared at the Hall of Famers and flew toward the heavenly peak. The Grand Elder also followed. As for the other Grand Elders, they looked at each other and left. Yi Tian also flew toward the heavenly peak with Zhao Xiaojin and the green-clothed woman. As for the other disciples, they either went to the heavenly peak to join in the fun or left in twos and threes. However, without exception, they were all discussing the same topic. How did the black dragon successfully pass the tribulation? Sky Peak. Big Brother Black Dragon, I'm going to go into seclusion in the divine spatial item. Help me guard the cave. Before I come out, don't let anyone in. Inside the cave, Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and said, "Don't worry and go." The black dragon turned into a meter long and waved its dragon claws. "Thank you." Qin Feiyang thanked him and brought the madman into the black tortoise world. Black Dragon glanced at the cave and pursed his lips. "Is this the cave of a hall of the exalted disciple? It can't even compare to my cave in the mountains. It's too shabby." After saying that, he turned around and blocked the entrance of the cave residence. It was as if one man could hold back 10,000 men. Just nice. The Vice Alliance leader, First Elder, Yi Tian, and the other disciples who came to join in the fun arrived outside the cave. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Black Dragon raised his eyebrows when he saw the Vice Alliance leader rushing towards the cave residence. The Vice Alliance leader was stunned. He frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" "I was the one who asked you first," Black Dragon angrily said. Others might be afraid of the Vice Alliance leader, but it wasn't. After all, it was also a perfected dominator and was now a divine beast. Mo Yuanchu is my disciple. Can't I see him? The Vice Alliance leader raised his eyebrows. "You can, but not now." Black Dragon shook his head. "Why?" The Vice Alliance leader was stunned. Black Dragon said indifferently, "Because he is rebuilding his physical body and divine body. I don't want anyone to disturb him. I am his master," the Vice Alliance leader roared. "I know. You don't have to remind me again," Black Dragon said. "Then why aren't you moving aside?" The Vice Alliance leader's face darkened. Who was he to be so arrogant in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? No means no. Although you are his master, I am also his big brother, so I must ensure his safety. Black Dragon said proudly. "Big brother?" The Vice Alliance leader was stunned. Yes, I just acknowledged him. Black Dragon nodded. The Vice Alliance leader was stunned. His disciple was quite amazing. In such a short time, he actually called this divine beast brother. The Vice Alliance leader said helplessly, "You can't be thinking that I will take the opportunity to hurt him, right?" "That's none of my business. Anyway, you can't go in now." Black Dragon shook his head. "Let me tell you, this is the Rogue Cultivator Alliance." The Vice Alliance leader suppressed his temper and said in a deep voice. Black Dragon was completely unmoved. He said indifferently, "Are you done? If you are, please go back." "You!" The Vice Alliance leader was furious. To see his disciple, he had to get someone else's permission? What kind of world was this? "Old ye, forget it. He is doing this for your disciple's sake." The great elder chuckled. The Vice Alliance leader rolled his eyes. He looked at Black Dragon and said, "Then has my disciple comprehended the fifth profound? After he rebuilds his divine body and divine soul, I will tell you personally." Black Dragon said. "Aye." The Vice Alliance leader was furious. All right. Let's go. Anyway, we just need to know that he is fine." The great elder hurriedly comforted and dragged the Vice Alliance leader back. "No, what are you talking about? I'm his master, right? He's my disciple, right? Why do we need this fellow's permission to meet?" The Vice Alliance leader could not accept it. "Think of it this way. He is protecting Mo-Yuan, which can be considered as saving you a lot of trouble. After all, Mo-Yuan has offended many people in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. What if someone dares to take advantage of his weakness to plot against him? Besides, this Black Dragon has already transformed into a divine beast. Its strength is much stronger than before. Even us elders might not be its match. If it can stay in our Rogue Cultivator Alliance, wouldn't it be a great help to us?" The great elder chuckled. "Help?" The Vice Alliance leader was stunned. "Yes. If it wasn't for Mo-Yuan, we wouldn't have been able to keep it. But it is different now. It is brothers with Mo-Yuan. When the time comes, as long as Mo-Yuan says the word, it might stay in our Rogue Cultivator Alliance. In that case, our Rogue Cultivator Alliance can be considered as having a divine beast overseeing it. For us, as long as it is beneficial, there will be no harm." The great elder smiled. "That makes sense. All right then. I will be magnanimous and not argue with it." The Vice Alliance leader smiled. He felt much better now. Outside the cave, Zhao Shaojin looked at the Black Dragon and said, "Senior, can't we go in and see him?" "Are you his wife?" The Black Dragon sized Zhao Shaojin up and asked suddenly. "Ah." Zhao Shaojin was stunned. "If you are, then you can. But if you are not, then get lost. Do you know him that well?" The Black Dragon turned hostile, just like that. It had no choice. In the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, it only recognized Qin Feiyang. As for the others, even Yi Tian, it did not care about them. Zhao Shaojin could not help but feel a trace of anger when she heard that. However, there was nothing she could do. A divine beast at the peak imperishable stage was not something she could offend. "If you don't want to go in, then so be it. Shaojin, let's go back." The green-clothed woman glared at the Black Dragon and pulled Zhao Shaojin back to the second cave. Yi Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly before returning to the first cave. As for the other disciples, they did not dare to go forward. They all hid in the distance and whispered, "Old Black, you've succeeded." Soon, the Fire Yuan ran to the sky peak with a group of beasts and looked at the Black Dragon excitedly. "Isn't it right in front of you?" The Black Dragon smiled proudly. "Where is Mo-Yuan now? We came together. Now that you've succeeded, don't forget us." The Fire Yuan said with a flattering expression, I really can't make the decision. How about this? When my little brother comes out of seclusion, I'll ask him." The Black Dragon said, Thank you. The Fire Yuan and the other beasts were very grateful. I say, old fire, let's not talk about them. Your fire lawn body is also considered a divine beast. Is there a need to be so anxious? The black dragon pulled the fire lawn to the side and frowned. Can it be as awe-inspiring as a phoenix? The fire lawn said. Seems like it. The black dragon nodded and laughed. Don't worry. I don't want to help those guys, but I'll definitely help you. Thank you, brother. The fire lawn was touched. No need, no need. We're all family. The black dragon waved his claws with a cunning look. One look, and one could tell that he was up to no good. In the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. It had been more than 100,000 years in the black tortoise world. On this day, Qin Feiyang finally walked out of the ancient castle. Not only did his physical body and divine soul reconstruct, but his cultivation had also successfully stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. Moreover, it was just as the two ancestors had said. After comprehending the fifth profundity of the law of lightning, all aspects of his body had improved. It was much easier for him to comprehend the other laws. Boom! Not long after he walked out of the ancient castle, frost suddenly appeared in the east of the Devil's Land. In just an instant, the sky began to freeze. The entire Devil's Land seemed to have fallen into a cold winter. This is... Qin Feiyang looked up with a trace of surprise in his eyes. This is the law of ice. The madman walked out. His cultivation had also been suppressed to the half-step sovereign realm. Law of ice? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, it should be that white jade Qilin guy. The madman said. White jade Qilin. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He patted his head and said, If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. Did it agree to follow you? This white jade Qilin was something they encountered in the trial ground. The madman was quite interested in this divine beast. No, this guy is very arrogant and looks down on me. But there's no rush. Anyway, there's still a long time. The madman waved his hand. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. The thing I asked you to plan last time, how's it going? The madman asked. What is it? Qin Feiyang didn't react for a moment. The madman said, It's to find someone to spar with and reveal my law of ice so that the big shots of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will take the initiative to accept me as a disciple. I'm sorry, I forgot about it. Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. I knew it. I have no interest in those big shots. I just want to take the opportunity to get some legendary, rank, heaven-defying treasures. Hurry up and arrange it. The madman urged. Okay, I'll go out and plan it later. Qin Feiyang nodded. Chapter 30, 198. You've all recovered. At this moment, Qin Batian and Lu Zhengyang walked over with a gratified smile on their faces. You actually still have the mood to come out for a stroll. Don't you feel the pressure? Madman looked at the two of them playfully. Pressure? The two of them were taken aback. Yes, thinking back to when I was still in the Divine Land, you had already stepped into the imperishable realm. And now, not only me, but even Qin Feiyang has caught up to you. Shouldn't there be pressure? Madman smiled playfully. Don't be so proud. You're just lucky to follow Feiyang and enjoy the benefits of the time array here. Lu Zhengyang pursed his lips. It's undeniable that my talent is definitely better than yours. Madman smiled proudly. Okay. Lu Zhengyang nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang. Feiyang, there's something we want to discuss with you. What is it? Qin Feiyang was taken aback and looked at the two of them suspiciously. We want to take a walk outside, Lu Zhengyang said. Just go, who dares to stop you? Qin Feiyang said. You don't understand what I mean. I'm not talking about the Black Tortoise Realm. We've already finished exploring the Black Tortoise Realm. We want to go outside to the Sky Cloud Realm. Lu Zhengyang smiled slightly. What? Go outside to the Sky Cloud Realm? Why? Isn't it good here? Qin Feiyang frowned. Of course it's good here. We don't lack anything. But it's because of this that we want to go out. Because all these years we've been staying in the Black Tortoise realm and we feel that our fighting spirit is almost gone. But the most important thing is that old Qin, Lu Zhengyang, glanced at Qin Batian and smiled. He wants to try to find the mystery of his origin. I've been paying attention to this. It's not worth it for you to take the risk. Qin Feiyang didn't want to agree. It wasn't easy for them to be reunited. If they were to be separated now, who knew when they would be able to reunite again? In any case, he couldn't bear to do it. You have your own things to do. We can't always rely on you. Besides, we're not old yet. We don't need you to protect us. As long as you can take care of yourself, we'll be satisfied. Actually, we've had this thought for a long time. It's just that the Black Tortoise realm is not strong enough, so we've been delaying it. But now, you and Madman have both stepped into the half-step ruler realm. You won't have any problems protecting yourselves. We can leave without worry. Qin Batian smiled. Are you two serious? Madman looked at the two and couldn't help but frown. When do you think we should make a joke? Lu Zhengyang smiled helplessly. I don't care if you're joking or not. I don't agree. Qin Feiyang shook his head. You brat, if we insist on leaving, do you think you can stop us? Lu Zhengyang shook his head and smiled. Qin Feiyang fell silent. Indeed, he couldn't stop them because Qin Batian controlled the space-time law. If the ancient castle didn't help, they could leave the Black Tortoise realm at any time. Since they've decided, there's no need to force them to stay. Old Qin, why don't we help them? After all, they're right. We still have a lot of things to do. We can't take care of everything. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and said, No, it's too sudden. I'm not prepared at all. If you want to leave, you should have said so earlier. Qin Feiyang looked at the two with dissatisfaction. It's not like we're parting forever. Is there a need? Qin Batian smiled and said, We can understand your feelings. Don't worry, we'll live well. Moreover, I have a premonition that, in the Sky Cloud realm, we'll definitely be able to solve the mystery of my identity. Since that's the case, Qin Feiyang frowned and said, All right, you two be careful. If you encounter any danger, remember to send me a message. Okay, the two nodded. What about great-grandmother and Xia Yuan? Qin Feiyang asked. Xia Yuan and the others will definitely stay in the Black Tortoise realm to help you. As for great-grandmother and Rushwang, they definitely won't follow us. You have to take good care of them. Qin Batian smiled. All right, Qin Feiyang nodded. Then, take the Blood Demon Tower with you. Although it's only a peak heaven-defying divine artifact, there's a 1-day, 500-year time array inside. Otherwise, when you go out, your cultivation will be too slow and you'll drag us down. Madman said. You're willing? Qin Batian and Rushwang were stunned. Of course, I'm not willing. But there's no other way. Who told me to meet you two fellows? But you have to promise me that you'll protect the Blood Demon Tower. Madman said. Since he had the time array of the Black Tortoise realm, and he couldn't use the Blood Demon Tower, he might as well give it to Qin Batian and Rushwang. Thank you very much. Qin Batian and Rushwang looked at each other and cupped their hands with a smile. All right, let's skip the pleasantries. I wish you success in solving the mystery of your background. Madman waved his hand. In fact, he could understand Qin Batian's feelings the most, because he had been searching for the mystery of his background. He didn't know where he came from, nor did he know if he had parents, siblings, or clansmen in this world. That was a kind of torture in disguise. Therefore, Madman was still very supportive of Qin Batian. All right, you two prepare and bring enough resources. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he left the Black Tortoise realm. The Azure Wave Snow Mountain had a barrier set up by the Alliance Master. Qin Batian couldn't activate the space-time law at all, so he had to leave the barrier first before the two ancestors could leave. It was just that it was too sudden. In his heart, he really couldn't bear to leave. brother, you're out. Black Dragon sensed Qin Feiyang's aura and hurriedly turned around and rushed into the cave. Yes, it's been hard on you, Brother Black Dragon. Qin Feiyang nodded and smiled. It's just guarding you. What's so hard about it? Black Dragon waved his claws and then said worriedly, But you've rebuilt your body and soul so quickly. If you go out now and are seen by others, I'm afraid your space-time formation will be exposed. That's true. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Only half a year had passed outside. In half a year's time, even with a peerless divine pill, it was impossible to rebuild the body and soul so quickly. It seemed that he had to think of a way to sneak out without anyone knowing. After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang had an idea. Qin Feiyang looked around and asked, Brother Black Dragon, where's the fire yuan? It went back to the mountain range. What's wrong? Black Dragon was suspicious. I have an idea. Let it come over and guard the cave. Just like before, no one is allowed to enter. And I'll follow you and sneak out quietly. Qin Feiyang said. Good idea. Black Dragon's eyes lit up and his body suddenly expanded. In an instant, a divine dragon of thousands of feet appeared. Then he opened one of his dragon claws and said with a sly smile, Same old rules hide in my palm. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded, jumped up and landed in Black Dragon's palm. Originally, he wanted to use the concealment technique, but now it seemed that there was no need. Black Dragon clenched his claws slightly. After hiding Qin Feiyang, he shouted, Old friend, come here. Chirp. Accompanied by a sharp cry, the fire yuan flew over like lightning. Old friend, I have something to do and have to go out. You'll guard Brother Mo here for me. Remember, before Brother Mo comes out, no one is allowed to enter. Also, you're not allowed to enter the cave and disturb him. If you provoke him and he doesn't help you transform, then don't blame me for not helping you. Black Dragon warned. I won't. Don't worry. The fire yuan laughed. Okay. Black Dragon nodded and turned into a stream of light, breaking through the sky like lightning. The fire yuan looked back at the cave with a trace of suspicion in its eyes. There was no aura at all. Was there anyone inside? It should be in a spatial divine object. With this thought, it lay at the entrance of the cave and scanned the surroundings with full attention, unaware that there was no one in the cave. Above the glacier, Black Dragon was as fast as lightning. Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, Brother Black Dragon, why does this fire yuan seem to want to curry favor with you? It's not trying to curry favor with me. It wants to curry favor with you through me. Black Dragon chuckled. Curry favor with me? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, didn't you help me transform successfully? That's why it's envious, because it wants to transform into a phoenix. Black Dragon said. So that's the case. However, to be honest, I don't have a way to transform into a phoenix. Because I don't have the divine body of a phoenix, not even a bit of blood essence. Qin Feiyang shook his head. That's not important. What's important is that it believes you can do it. In this way, we can use this point to make it our own. Black Dragon laughed. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Do you think I'm a little cunning? Black Dragon asked. A little. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm doing this for you. There's so many strong people in the Eastern continent. I'm afraid I can't protect you alone. That's why I have to find help. This fire yuan used to live in the same place as me. I know its strength like the back of my hand. It can be said that even the elders of the Rogue Cultivators Alliance can't kill it. With its help, you'll undoubtedly be safer in the future. Black Dragon said. I see. Thank you, Brother Black Dragon. Qin Feiyang was touched. We're brothers. What are you thanking me for? Black Dragon shook his head. The speed of a great perfection sovereign was naturally not something Qin Feiyang could compare to. In just a few dozen breaths, They arrived at the border of the Kanglan Snow Mountain. "Isn't this Black Dragon?" Second Shing was slightly taken aback. Hey, I'm going out for a while. Open the barrier." Black Dragon stared at Second Shing without any respect. Instead, Second Shing looked at Black Dragon with a hint of fear in his eyes. Second Shing was only a great perfection sovereign, while Black Dragon was a great perfection sovereign. Moreover, it was a divine beast. Killing Second Shing could only be described in one sentence: easy as pie. "Why are you going out?" Second Shing was suspicious. He knew what the Deputy Alliance Master was thinking. What if this guy ran out and didn't come back? He didn't notice Qin Feiyang, who was hiding in the dragon's claws. Chapter 30, 199. Do I have to report to you what I'm going to do? Black Dragon raised his eyebrows, looking extremely displeased. This second interrogation officer was a little terrified. "Hurry up, or don't blame me for being rude," Black Dragon roared. Second interrogation officer sighed inwardly and could only take out the token to open the barrier. Black Dragon left the barrier without looking back. But as Black Dragon left, second interrogation officer immediately took out the voice transmission stone. Buzz! The shadow of the deputy leader appeared quickly. What? It left the Alliance capital. Hearing second interrogation officer's report, the deputy leader immediately frowned. Yes, it left alone. Second interrogation officer nodded. Did it say where it was going? Deputy leader asked. No, I didn't dare to stop it. Second interrogation officer shook his head. The deputy leader pondered for a while and waved his hand. You don't have to worry too much about this. As long as its relationship with Mo Yuanchuan doesn't change, it won't really leave. That's true. Second interrogation officer nodded. Outside, heavy snow was falling and the cold wind was bone-chilling. Mount Kanglan was huge and the Alliance capital was located in the center of it. So even if it left the barrier, it was still in Mount Kanglan, above a canyon. Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and smiled. Brother Black Dragon, wait for me here. Don't you need me to go with you? Black Dragon was stunned. No need. Qin Feiyang shook his head and left alone, disappearing at the end of the snow mountain. So mysterious, Black Dragon muttered, but he didn't think too much about it. Back to Qin Feiyang. He did want to hide it from Black Dragon, because Qin Batian had appeared in Wind Sea City before. So if he was recognized, it might be a big problem. Although Black Dragon treated him as a brother now. But what if his identity was exposed? One had to know. His true identity couldn't be taken as a joke. If Black Dragon were to accidentally spill the beans, it would be a disaster for him. So, for safety reasons, it was better not to let Black Dragon know for now. After all, they had just met. As for the future, when he could trust Black Dragon, he would naturally take the initiative to confess. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, Qin Batian and Lu Zhangyang appeared. This is the Kanglan Snow Mountain? The two of them looked around. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Since I've already decided what's there to consider, whether it's doing something or being a person, one cannot be half-hearted. Child, take care of yourself. Also, if there's a need, we can join forces with the Demon Palace. Qin Batian said. I know what to do. Qin Feiyang nodded. All right, we'll meet again. Qin Batian smiled and turned to leave with Lu Zhangyang. Did you bring the Blood Demon Tower? Qin Feiyang asked hurriedly. Yes. The two of them smiled without even turning their heads. Then, they disappeared from Qin Feiyang's sight like lightning. Take care. Qin Feiyang looked at the void and muttered to himself. Ever since he reunited with his two ancestors, he never thought that they would be separated again. And it was so sudden. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel melancholy. Sigh. After a long time, Qin Feiyang sighed and turned to fly over the canyon. You don't look right. Did something happen? Black Dragon looked at him suspiciously. No. Qin Feiyang waved his hand with a smile and asked, Brother Black Dragon, where did you live before? Black Cloud Swamp. Black Dragon said. Black Cloud Swamp? Qin Feiyang was stunned. You may not know Black Cloud Swamp, but you should have heard of the Demon Land. Black Dragon smiled. The Demon Land. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Wasn't that the border between the eastern and southern continents that Zhuo Tianqing mentioned? That was a recognized forbidden area of the two continents. The Black Cloud Swamp you mentioned, is it in the Demon Land? Qin Feiyang was surprised. That's not it. The Black Cloud Swamp is outside the Demon Land, and people from the eastern continent have to pass through the Black Cloud Swamp to go to the Demon Land. Black Dragon explained. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. He was really shocked and then said, Then how much do you know about the Demon Land? If it's the outer area, I definitely know a little, but if it's the border area, the central area, the inner area, and the core area, I'm not sure. Because I haven't gone deep into the Demon Land. Black Dragon shook his head. There are so many areas. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Of course, because the Demon Land is too big, it's divided into 5 areas. They are the outer area, the border, the central area, the inner area, and the core. Black Dragon said. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. The so-called outer area meant that one hadn't entered the Demon Land. As for the border area, it was the very edge of the Demon Land. Once one stepped into the border area, it was equivalent to officially entering the Demon Land. Needless to say, the core area was the center of the Demon Land. Qin Feiyang asked, since the Black Cloud Swamp is the only way, then around 10,000 years ago, did you see a man and a woman? A man and a woman? Black Dragon was stunned and asked, What did they look like? What did they look like? Qin Feiyang was stunned. He really didn't know what the 10th elder's son and daughter-in-law looked like. If you don't know what they look like, I really don't know how to tell you. Because every year, many people enter the border area to explore. Black Dragon laughed bitterly. So it's like that. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and took out the sound transmission godstone. Buzz. Very quickly, a figure appeared. It was Zhuo Tianqing. Qin! Zhuo Tianqing was about to call out Qin Feiyang's name, but he suddenly saw Black Dragon beside him and immediately changed his words. Cloud Sea City Lord Zhuo Tianqing greets young Master Mo. What do the 10th elder's son and daughter-in-law look like? Qin Feiyang asked. Them. Zhuo Tianqing waved his hand, and the figures of a man and a woman appeared. Both of them looked middle-aged. The man was about 8 meters tall, and his body was quite thin. The most eye-catching thing was that he wore a black eye patch over his left eye. As for the woman, her appearance and temperament were not bad. They are, Zhuo Tianqing said. Brother Black Dragon, have you seen them? Qin Feiyang pointed at the two and asked Black Dragon. Black Dragon sized them up for a while, then lowered his head and pondered. 10,000 years ago, a man and a woman, and it was a one-eyed man. Suddenly, Black Dragon's eyes lit up, and he nodded. Yes, I have a special impression of this one-eyed man. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. This person's temper is very bad, and his methods are not bad. Back then, when he passed through Black Cloud Swamp, he killed some of my underlings. I even gave the order to chase after him. So I have a deep impression of him. Black Dragon said. Then they really entered the Devil Land? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. I saw them enter the Devil Land. Because the Devil Land is too dangerous, I didn't chase after them at that time. Black Dragon said. Entering the Devil Land, one will either obtain a great fortune or die inside. And now, 10,000 years have passed, and they still haven't appeared. They are probably dead inside. Zhuo Tianqing analyzed. If they really died inside, then I don't have to do anything. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, looked at Zhuo Tianqing and said, Then let's leave it at that for now. Zhuo Tianqing nodded and turned off the voice transmission crystal. Qin Feiyang also lowered his head and pondered. There was no need to consider the 10th elder's son and daughter-in-law for now. And now, he had stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. Then, there were only 2 things left. The first was to find an opportunity to let Madman show off his strength in the Alliance capital. The second was to investigate whether the Alliance leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was in cahoots with the Vice leader. However, until now, he had never seen this Alliance leader. How should I investigate? Qin Feiyang gradually furrowed his brows. After thinking for a long time, he really couldn't think of any good ideas. However, he had already thought of a way to deal with Madman. Forget it. Anyway, my current strength isn't enough to deal with the Blood Hall. I'll just peacefully stay in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and cultivate. Qin Feiyang secretly muttered and called Madman out. Madman had already turned into Mo Wu Hui's appearance. Black Dragon looked at Madman in surprise. What are you looking at? Have you never seen a handsome guy before? Madman stared at him. Handsome guy? Black Dragon's mouth twitched and said, You have also stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. Then, your lightning law has also comprehended the 5th profound? Of course. Madman smiled proudly. Big brother Black Dragon, let me introduce you. This is Mo Wu Hui. Cough, cough. He is my older brother. Qin Feiyang said unnaturally. Brother? Black Dragon asked. Then what? Madman glared at him. Ha! Black Dragon laughed dryly. I thought of a way. You! Qin Feiyang muttered in Madman's ear. Okay. Madman nodded and laughed. Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and said, Big brother Black Dragon, later on, you have to cooperate and say that you came out to pick up my big brother. No problem. Your big brother is also my big brother. That's not right. Why is he my big brother? Your big brother is also my brother. Everything can be discussed. Black Dragon looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Qin Feiyang smiled and once again hid in Black Dragon's claws. Madman didn't hide and directly followed Black Dragon back to the Alliance capital. You're back? Seeing Black Dragon return so quickly, Interrogation Officer 2 couldn't help but be stunned. And immediately after, he noticed Madman beside him. This person seems to be... Interrogation Officer 2 was surprised. He didn't know much about Madman Mo Wu Hui's identity. He only heard that Mo Wu Yuan had such a big brother. And the most sensational thing was when he taught Feng Wanyan a lesson in the East City. But after that, this person disappeared without a trace. And later on, Qin Feiyang showed his ability, so much so that everyone almost forgot about this person. Interrogation Officer 2? Madman entered the barrier and sized up Interrogation Officer 2. Yes, you're Mo Wu Yuan's big brother, Mo Wu Hui. Interrogation Officer 2 asked. That's right. I heard that my brother is doing well in the Alliance capital, so I came back to benefit from it. Madman chuckled. Interrogation Officer 2 smiled bitterly. Not only was he doing well, who wouldn't be respectful when the name Mo Wu Yuan was mentioned? He asked, So you're saying that Black Dragon went out specifically to pick you up? You can say that. Madman grinned. Chapter 30, 200. Second interrogation. Officer's heart skipped a beat. Black Dragon actually came to fetch Mo Wu Hui personally. These two brothers had a very close relationship. However, Mo Wu Hui's talent was so much worse than Mo Wu Yuan's. Wait a minute. Suddenly, his gaze trembled as he stared at Lunatic. This aura was actually a half-step sovereign. Didn't he hear that when this person taught Feng Wanyan a lesson, he was only a small success, imperishable realm? What was going on? Is there anything else? If not, I'll go to the Hall of Fame. Lunatic looked at second interrogation officer and asked. All right. Second interrogation officer nodded. Old Black, let's go. Madman smiled at Black Dragon. Black Dragon immediately picked up Madman and tore through the sky like lightning. Small success, imperishable realm, half-step sovereign. How many years has it been? Could it be that he's also a low-profile monster like Mo Yun? Second interrogation officer looked at Lunatic's back view and muttered to himself. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and took out the voice transmission divine stone. Buzz! A virtual figure appeared. It was the deputy leader. Lord, Mo Wuhui is back. Second interrogation officer hurriedly said. Mo Wuhui, that big brother of Mo Kang. The deputy leader was stunned. He thought for a moment and asked. That's right. It's him. Second interrogation officer nodded. So what if he's back? What's the fuss about? The deputy leader looked at him with dissatisfaction. No. Lord, I'd like to ask, what was his cultivation level when he taught Feng Wanyan a lesson in the East City? Second interrogation officer asked. His cultivation level. The deputy leader pondered for a moment and said, according to Old Manning, he seemed to be a small success, imperishable realm cultivator. At that time, he had already comprehended the second profound meaning of the Thunder Law. Initially, he was the one who participated in the trial. However, I heard that he went out to train, so Mo Yun replaced him. Indeed, he was a small success, imperishable realm cultivator. Second interrogation officer's gaze trembled. He then looked at the deputy leader and said, Do you know what his cultivation level is now? He's a half-step sovereign. Half-step sovereign. The deputy leader stood up with a look of shock. That's right. I saw it with my own eyes. Second interrogation officer nodded. That's impossible. At that time he was only at the small success stage of the Undying Realm. How could he have stepped into the half-step ruler realm so quickly? The vice leader murmured. Therefore, I suspect that he is also hiding his talent and strength. Second Xing said, If that's the case, then we can't ignore him. No, I have to confirm this with Old Manning. Back then, when this kid was teaching Feng Wanyan a lesson in the eastern part of the city, what kind of law did he use? And what kind of profundity was that? After the Vice Alliance leader finished speaking, the phantom image disappeared. At the same time, Elder Ing received a message from the Vice Alliance master. After some recollection, Elder Ing confirmed that the madman had displayed the law of lightning, and it was the second profound. Now that this matter was confirmed, the Vice Alliance master's confidence was immediately shaken. At that time, he had only comprehended the second profound. But in such a short time, he had comprehended the fifth and stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. His comprehension ability was too frightening. Back to Qin Feiyang, Madman, and Black Dragon. Did you see Second Xing's expression just now? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. Yes, he looked like he had seen a ghost. He must have been shocked by my cultivation. Madman smiled proudly. Back in the eastern part of the city, you had only revealed the second profound. But now, you have stepped into the half-step sovereign realm. How could he not be shocked? I reckon that the Vice Alliance leader has already noticed you. Qin Feiyang chuckled. That's the effect I wanted. Madman chuckled. With Black Dragon's help, they quickly returned to the Hall of the Exalted. This is the Hall of the Exalted? Madman stood above Sky Peak, suppressing his cultivation to the initial imperishable stage as he looked around. Qin Feiyang quietly returned to his cave residence. Who is this? I've never seen him before. Wait, he seems familiar. Right, I remember now. He is Mo Yun's elder brother, Mo Yun. He doesn't seem to be a disciple of the Hall of the Exalted. Soon, some people noticed Madman and started discussing him. So what if he's not a disciple of the Hall of the Exalted? Besides, are the disciples of the Hall of the Exalted that powerful? It's not that I look down on you, but you are not even worthy of carrying my shoes. Madman looked at those people proudly. He was here to cause trouble, so he had no scruples at all. Hearing this, the group of people suddenly became angry. Do you think you can be unscrupulous and disregard the law just because you have a younger brother backing you? The Hall of the Exalted also has rules. No matter who you are, as long as you are not a disciple of the Hall of the Exalted, you cannot enter here. Emo Wuhue, the Hall of the Exalted is not a place for you to mess around. Leave immediately. Sure enough, a shout was heard. It was the old man in red. The old man in red rushed to the sky above sky, peak, and frowned. If you are here to visit your younger brother, then this old man will not object. But if you are here to cause trouble, then this old man will definitely not sit back and do nothing. How would I dare to do that? I just came to see how powerful the disciples of the Hall of the Exalted are. But now that I look at it, it's just SOO. Madman smiled disdainfully. What a big tone. There was a trace of anger in the eyes of the old man in red. He was simply here to cause trouble. Of course his tone is big, but what he said is also the truth. This is just a motley crew. Fortunately, I went out to experience and did not enter the Hall of the Exalted. Otherwise, I will be disgusted to death. Madman said contemptuously, Bastard, I want a duel with you. That's right. Who do you think you are? How dare you call us a motley crew? Do you think you are your younger brother and have extraordinary talent? Countless disciples surrounded Madman angrily. Duel, you think you are worthy. Madman smiled contemptuously. Preposterous. Too arrogant. I can't stand it anymore. Even if you are Mo Wuyuan's elder brother, I will teach you a lesson. A disciple in the great perfection, eternal realm, rushed toward Madman angrily. Enough, leave immediately. The old man in red saw this and shouted at Madman. Elder, you are a bit of a bully. Are you allowing them to be arrogant? I can't even fart. Madman was dissatisfied. You, the old man in red was furious. Can't tell that you have already caused public anger? Letting you go is for your own good. Madman didn't care. He looked at the disciple in the great perfection eternal realm and said in disdain, Get lost. I am not interested in you. Bastard, I will kill you. That disciple roared. Stop. If you want to fight, go to the fighting arena. The old man in red shouted. That's right. Let's go to the fighting arena. Mo Wuhue, if you have the guts, follow me to the fighting arena. That disciple clamored. You still need to go to the fighting arena? I can kill you with a breath. Madman had a look of contempt. Elder, take a look. What kind of attitude is this? That disciple was furious. The other disciples also had a look of anger. Bastard, this is Heaven Peak. How dare you behave so atrociously here? Suddenly, the woman in green and Zhao Shaojin ran out from the cave, and the one who spoke was the woman in green. Shaojin, long time no see. Madman waved at Zhao Shaojin with a smile, but the woman in green ignored him. This made the woman in green very angry. Did he treat her as air? Long time no see. Zhao Shaojin smiled. You know him? The woman in green looked at Zhao Shaojin suspiciously. He is Mo Yuan's elder brother, Mo Wuhue. Zhao Shaojin nodded. So it's you. The woman in green looked at Madman and sneered. Come, I will fight with you. Sister Dandan, what are you doing? If he wants to cause trouble, just let him do it. Why are you joining in the fun? Zhao Shaojin hurriedly said. Don't bother. The woman in green waved her hand and looked at Madman provocatively back then. Your brother didn't dare to accept my challenge. What about you now? Do you dare? You. Madman sized up the woman in green and shook his head. You are just a little girl. I can kill you with a finger. Bastard. The woman in green couldn't help but tremble in anger. Just tell me if you dare or not. I'm not interested. Get someone even stronger. Madman said indifferently. The woman in green was stunned and said with a black face, You mean to say that I am not strong? Isn't this the truth in front of you? Madman picked his nostrils. Bastard, I won't forgive you. The woman in green roared and Sword Chi appeared, forming a Sword Chi domain. This was the third profound of the sword law. Sword domain. Sister Dandan, don't be rash. Zhao Xiaojin hurriedly pulled the woman in green. She was clear about Madman's background. He was also a terrifying monster. Don't stop me. The woman in green pushed Zhao Xiaojin away and controlled the sword domain to attack Madman. Mo Wuhui, be careful. She is the granddaughter of the Grand Elder. Zhao Xiaojin saw that she couldn't persuade the woman in green and looked at Madman. The granddaughter of the Grand Elder? Madman was taken aback for a moment before he chuckled. So what? Boom! The lightning law suddenly appeared, and the third profound, Lightning Fury, was formed and blasted at the sword domain. How worrisome! The old man in red sighed. One was the granddaughter of the Grand Elder, and the other was Mo Wuyuan's brother. They were both people he couldn't afford to offend. Therefore, he could only set up a barrier and isolate the battlefield for the two to fight. Boom! The two profound divine abilities clashed. Madman was sent flying, and blood gushed out of his mouth. This was because he had suppressed his cultivation to the initial stage of the undead realm, while the woman in green was at the peak of the undead realm. There was a difference of 3 stages between them, so even if they both had the third profundity, he was still no match for the woman in green. I thought you were strong, so that's all you have. Looks like you're really lacking compared to Mo Wuyuan. The surrounding disciples immediately looked at him with disdain. Although mastering the third profound at this cultivation level was considered impressive, wasn't it still lacking the qualifications to be arrogant? Seeing this, the woman in green's face was full of pride. She said indifferently, It's nothing. Madman wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said with a smile, Little girl, aren't you celebrating too early? Your mouth is so dirty. You should be slapped. The woman in green snorted and took a step forward. She raised her hand and slapped Madman's face. Chapter 3201. Yes, that's the way to slap his face. Let him deeply understand that our Hall of the Exalted is not a place where he can behave atrociously. The surrounding disciples were all waiting to watch a good show. However, just as the woman in green slap was about to land on Madman's face, Madman suddenly grinned and raised his arm like lightning, grabbing the woman in green's wrist. With your cultivation, you think you can catch me? The woman in green was disdainful, but when she tried to break free, she was immediately dumbfounded. The other party's big hand was like a steel clamp grabbing her wrist. Not to mention breaking free, she couldn't even move. Hee hee, Madman grinned and laughed nonstop. The woman in green looked up and found that Madman's face was full of playfulness. Little girl, you're too arrogant. You want to slap my face in front of everyone. Madman opened his mouth, and the ridicule on his face became even stronger. His 5 fingers slightly exerted force, and the woman in green's wrist suddenly felt a shattering pain. What's going on? The surrounding disciples looked at this scene with a look of surprise. One was at the small success immortal realm, and the other was at the great perfection immortal realm. There was a difference of 3 small realms. But she couldn't compare to the other party. Pain. The woman in green's face began to turn pale. Because Madman's strength was increasing, the bones in her wrist began to crack and drop of blood flowed out. Mo Wuhui, quickly stop. Zhao Xiaojin was burning with anxiety. This guy was indeed pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. However, Madman turned a deaf ear and stared at the woman in green. He smiled and said, "What? Great Elder's granddaughter only has this much strength? It seems that this hall of the exalted is indeed not much. Anyone can enter. Let go of me." The woman in green was ashamed and angry. "Then beg me." Madman looked at her teasingly. "In your dreams." The woman in green was also very stubborn. "All right, I'd like to see how long you can hold on for." Madman chuckled and increased the strength of his hand. "Gotcha!" The woman in green's wrist suddenly cracked and blood gushed out. The intense pain made her face as pale as paper. Let go of her. But at this moment, a white-robed young man broke through the air like a bolt of lightning and landed outside the barrier. His eyes were filled with anger. "It's Mu Ziyu. He's older than Yi Tian, and he's a half-step sovereign. I heard that he has already grasped 3 types of laws, and he has even comprehended the 5th profundity of the laws of darkness. That's not the important point. The important point is that this person has always been secretly in love with the great elder's granddaughter." People were discussing in low voices. Madman heard everything and looked at Mu Ziyu. He teased, "You want to play the hero and save the beauty? What's wrong with bullying a woman? Come at me if you dare. I'll let you have 3 rounds first." Mu Ziyu coldly looked at Madman. "Ha ha!" Madman laughed and sent the green-clothed woman flying with a palm strike. He turned around and said to Mu Ziyu, "Then come." "Sister Dandan, are you all right?" Zhao Xiaojin ran up to the green-clothed woman and asked with concern. "I'm fine." The green-clothed woman shook her head and stared at the madman while cursing him. "Elder, may I enter?" Mu Ziyu looked at the red-clothed old man and pointed at the barrier. The red-clothed old man glanced at the arrogant and despotic madman and nodded. "Go in." It was also a good opportunity to teach this kid a lesson. Hearing this, Mu Ziyu took a step into the barrier. The laws of darkness roared out like a raging wave, emitting a monstrous aura as it charged at the madman. "Half-step ruler!" Madman chuckled and released his aura in an instant. "What? His aura? He's also a half-step ruler." Everyone's eyes widened in anger. The red-clothed old man and the green-clothed woman were the same. So fast! There was a trace of shock in Zhao Xiaojin's eyes. She guessed that the madman's strength was definitely stronger than before, but she didn't expect that he had already stepped into the half-step ruler realm. In other words, the madman had already comprehended the 5th profundity of a law. This speed was too terrifying, wasn't it? It wasn't inferior to Qin Feiyang at all. At the same time, Mu Ziyu's expression also had a trace of shock. Half-step ruler, so what? The madman grinned, and the laws of lightning surged out, surging toward the laws of darkness. Boom! The 2 great laws collided with a loud bang. The 2 immediately took a step back each. "It's the laws of lightning," the red-clothed old man muttered. Mu Ziyu's laws of darkness had already comprehended the 5th profundity, and the madman's laws of lightning could compete with Mu Ziyu's laws of darkness. Clearly, the madman had comprehended the 5th profundity of the laws of lightning. They both grasped the laws of lightning, as expected of brothers. There are strong and weak half-step rulers. If there's only one law, then it's undoubtedly the weakest. And now I've grasped 3 laws. After Mu Ziyu calmed down, he smiled disdainfully at the madman, and 3 laws appeared. The first was the laws of darkness. The other 2 were the laws of fire and the laws of earth. Furthermore, those 2 types of law energies had both reached the 2nd level of profoundness. "Are you showing off?" The madman was stunned. "If you think so, then I won't object." Mu Ziyu smiled proudly and didn't forget to glance at the green-clothed woman, as if to say to her, "Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you and make him kneel in front of everyone and apologize to you." "Showing off your laws in front of me?" The madman was stunned. Was this a joke? He didn't dare to say anything else. But in terms of laws, other than Qin Feiyang, no one could catch his eye. Of course, this was only limited to people of the same generation. There was no way to compare with people of the older generation. "If you take the initiative to apologize to Miss Dandin now, I can be merciful." Mu Ziyu looked at the madman as if victory was already in his hands. That arrogant attitude made the madman finally unable to hold back and laugh. What is he laughing about? Could it be that he's still not convinced? Isn't this the truth right in front of your eyes? Everyone looked at the madman suspiciously. The green-clothed woman also had a face of disgust. She had never seen such an arrogant person. But the red-clothed old man frowned. Why was he so confident? Could it be that this kid was like Mo Yuanyuan hiding his strength? Mu Ziyu raised his eyebrows and looked at the madman. "Laughing can't hide your current situation." "Ha!" The madman laughed even more merrily. Mu Ziyu gradually lost his patience. The power of the 3 laws turned into 3 giant dragons and charged at the madman with monstrous might. "You want to perform in front of that little girl, that's right. After all, you're all men, so it's understandable. But you've picked the wrong target. Competing with me in terms of laws will only make you more embarrassed. Open your little eyes and watch carefully. My brother isn't the only genius in this world." The madman took a step forward and the law of thunder rolled out. Following closely, the law of war, law of slaughter, and law of darkness roared out. Moreover, he had already comprehended the 4th profound of the law of slaughter and the 3rd profound of the law of war. Even for the law of darkness that he had just comprehended some time ago, he had already comprehended the 2nd profound. Boom! The 4 laws were like 4 giant dragons as they roared in all directions and blasted towards Mu Ziyu's law. Whether it was quantity or quality, the madman surpassed Mu Ziyu. There was no suspense. Mu Ziyu's law was shattered on the spot as his entire body flew out with blood flowing out. He actually grasped 4 types of law, not to mention the other disciples. Even the woman in green couldn't remain calm. What's the big deal about 4 types of law? The madman smiled proudly as a sacred light emerged. This was the law of light. What? 5 types of law? Everyone was dumbfounded. Inside the cave, sensing the madman's law of light, Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. What's going on? When did this guy comprehend the law of light? Could it be that what he inherited from the temple was the law of light? Wait a minute. It shouldn't be. If it was the law of light, there was no need for the madman to hide it from them, because the law of light couldn't be considered the strongest law of light. Xiaoxian, when did senior brother madman comprehend the law of light? Qin Feiyang couldn't figure it out and sent a voice transmission to Zhuo Xiaoxian. He comprehended the law of light after the exchange. And he's not the only one. The others have benefited greatly too. For example, I've comprehended the law of water. However, sister-in-law is the most impressive one. She has comprehended 2 types of law. Together with her original law of life, she now has 3 types of law. Zhuo Xiaoxian explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. It seemed like the exchange was quite useful after all. In other words, basically everyone has mastered more than 2 types of law? Qin Feiyang asked. That's right. Qin Monarch and Yang Monarch have also comprehended 2 types of law after leaving, but I don't know what they are. Zhuo Xiaoxian replied. Not bad. It seems like the exchange will be held more often in the future. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. He was quite satisfied with the outcome. He then said, Senior brother madman has been hiding the law of light. Do you know what it is? I don't know. I've asked him, but he refused to tell me. He said, He would definitely give us a surprise in the future. However, I do know one thing. It seems like he has comprehended the fourth, profound of the law of light. Zhuo Xiaoxian's tone was filled with a hint of dissatisfaction. What? The fourth profound? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The fifth profound of the law of thunder, the fourth profound of the law of slaughter, and the fourth profound of the law of light. Overall, Senior Brother Madman had surpassed him. Apart from the law of thunder, he had only comprehended the fourth profound of the law of causality. The rest of the laws were only at the third profound. It seemed like he had to work harder. Outside, the place fell into a dead silence. Everyone stared at Madman in astonishment. 5 types of law of light. This was another monster. Even Zhao Xiaojin, who was familiar with Qin Feiyang and Madman, could not help but exclaim in his heart. One Qin Feiyang was already enough. Now, another Madman had appeared. How were the others supposed to live? Chapter 3202. So what if he has 5 types of laws? He still can't compare to his younger brother, Mo Yuanyuan. After all, Mo Yuanyuan has mastered 7 types of laws. Someone said sourly, "This was obviously envy, jealousy, and hatred." Madman laughed. "My brother is indeed powerful, but do you really think that I have mastered 5 types of laws?" What? Listening to what he said, he is still hiding the power of laws. Everyone was surprised. Could it be that he was the same as Mo Yuanyuan and also mastered 7 types of laws? Is there a hidden law or not? I have no comment. But even so, my 5 types of laws are enough to kill all of you so-called monstrous geniuses. Madman looked at everyone with disdain, and no one refuted. Because this was the truth. The strongest disciple in the Hall of the Exalted was a small stage dominator, and a small stage dominator could at most master 3 or 4 types of laws. The most important thing was that this person was young. His future achievements would definitely be higher. Still want to fight? Madman glanced at Mu Ziyu, his eyes full of playfulness. Mu Ziyu's pupils shrank. He was afraid. Madman's strength was in front of him, and he had far surpassed him. And there was also Qin Feiyang, not to mention the talent of these two. Even if Mo Yuanyuan had the vice leader behind him, if these two held a grudge because of today's matter, wouldn't it be easy for them to target him in the future? But if he were to admit defeat now, what about his face? He would definitely be laughed at. The most important thing was that the green-clothed woman was still here. If he were to admit defeat, she would definitely look down on him in the future, not to mention capturing her heart. Now he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. It was hard to choose. Madman, of course, could see Mu Ziyu's current mood. He grinned. Just treat it as a spar. There is no winner or loser. And Mu Ziyu was taken aback. Was he giving him a way out? Madman looked at him indifferently. That gaze was very obvious. Be tactful and don't embarrass yourself. Go down the stairs. Mu Ziyu looked at Madman gratefully before turning around and leaving without looking back. Although the two ended up reconciling, anyone with a discerning eye knew that Madman was deliberately giving Mu Ziyu a way out. So in the future, Mu Ziyu would definitely be talked about. Mu Ziyu was also clear about this point. However, compared to being humiliated in public and even losing his life, this was nothing. This place is really boring. I'd better leave. Madman glanced at the Hall of the Exalted, shook his head, and left. Wait. Suddenly, the red-clothed old madman's voice sounded. Madman, madman. Madman frowned and said, "But I heard that to enter the Hall of the Exalted, one has to pass a trial, and the trial grounds," Madman said. The red-clothed old man chuckled. "You can do that?" Madman was stunned, but at the same time he looked around with a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Why hadn't the big shots of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance appeared yet? Could it be that his talent wasn't enough to attract these people? That's right. He had done this in order to attract the attention of the authorities. However, not a single one of them had shown up. Forget it. I'm really not interested in the Hall of the Exalted, especially those arrogant people who claim to be geniuses. Just looking at them makes me annoyed. Madman pretended to hesitate for a while and shook his head. Who are you talking about? The green-clothed woman glared at him. Isn't it obvious? I'm talking about all the disciples in the Hall of the Exalted. Of course, except for my brother. Madman chuckled. Bastard. Even if his talent is amazing, you can't say that about everyone. Who can make a move and teach him a lesson? Someone shouted. However, no one made a move. There were a few low-stage sovereigns in the crowd. With their cultivation, they were confident in fighting with Madman, but they didn't make a move. Because the higher one's cultivation, the smarter one was. Madman's talent had been revealed. His future was limitless and might even surpass them. As for Qin Feiyang, there was even less of a need. Not only was his talent amazing, but he was also the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader. Thus, these two brothers weren't people they could provoke. Don't send me off. Madman waved his hand without turning his head and left. He was deliberately provoking the big shots. But even so, none of the big shots showed up. Could it be that the talent he displayed wasn't enough to attract them? If that was the case, then wouldn't he have wasted so much time? No. He had to get his hands on a legendary, heaven-defying treasure. Before I leave, I'll give all of you so-called monstrous geniuses a big gift. Madman suddenly stopped and said without turning his head. Big gift? What do you mean? Everyone was puzzled. Boom! A monstrous aura suddenly rushed out of Madman's body. This aura contained a terrifying aura of death. At this moment, he was like a god of death that had returned. The fourth profound of the law of death, god of death's descent. Just as everyone was bewildered, Madman's voice sounded again. The law of death? Everyone present was shocked. They quickly looked up and saw a gray power of law rushing out of Madman's body. The aura of death grew stronger and shrouded the entire Hall of the Exalted. Everyone couldn't help but tremble. It felt as if they had fallen into the abyss of hell. An unresolvable fear emerged uncontrollably from the depths of their hearts. Boom! Accompanied by a loud sound. A statue of the god of death appeared above Madman's head. The statue was wearing a black robe and black fog surged around it. It held a pitch-black giant scythe in its hand that emitted a dazzling light. The fourth profound of the law of death, the red-clothed old man was dumbfounded. This was one of the strongest laws in the world. Not only did this kid master the law of death, but he had also comprehended the fourth profound, the strongest law. Anyone who grasped an ultimate law would become an overlord in the future, no matter how weak they were. No, this kid must stay in the Hall of the Exalted. He was the same as Mo Yuan. They were both existences that could change the fate of the rogue Cultivator Alliance. This gift is not to show off, but to remind you that there is always someone better. Don't think that you are a genius just because you have some talent. You will only be laughed at. Madman laughed and waved his hand. The god of death swung the giant scythe in its hand and charged toward the Hall of the Exalted Disciples. Retreat! The imperishable realm disciples hurriedly fled in fear. At the same time, a dominator realm disciples stepped forward and activated the fourth, profound of the law of gold to attack the god of death. With a loud rumble, the fourth profundity of the law of metal was shattered without any suspense. They are both using the fourth profound, but the difference is too big. Yeah, it's a complete suppression. Is this the power of the strongest law? It is indeed terrifying. Everyone was shocked. The Dominator Realm disciple who attacked was also shocked. He had long heard that the strongest laws were stronger than other laws. Now that he had seen it, it was indeed so. Boom! He activated the fifth profound of the law of gold and charged toward the god of death. At this moment, only then did the grim reaper's statue dissipate. Strong! If only I could comprehend an ultimate law. Everyone had a look of envy. That's it then, goodbye. Madman smiled proudly and took another step forward. Wait! The old man in red hurriedly shouted and immediately rushed in front of Madman. What else do you want? Madman frowned. You can't leave. The old man in red shook his head. Can't leave? What kind of logic is this? Madman was stunned. The old man in red did not answer. He looked at the peak of the Deacon Hall and said, Everyone, how long are you going to stay here? It's time to come out. Madman looked up and saw 11 figures at the peak of the mountain. They were the vice leader, the Hall of Famers, and the 9 elders. At this moment, they were all shocked and could not recover for a long time. Mo Wuyuan had mastered the strongest law, the law of cause and effect. And Mo Wuhui had also mastered the strongest law, the law of death. What kind of monsters were these brothers? It was fine if it was just one monster, but both of them were so monstrous. That's right. They had arrived a long time ago. They had been hiding their aura and observing Madman. And just as Madman had guessed, the 5 types of laws were not enough to enter their eyes, because there was already a Qin Feiyang in front of them. 7 types of laws, including the law of cause and effect. So in comparison, the 5 types of laws that Madman had displayed before were nothing. Of course, if there was no Qin Feiyang in front of them, even if Madman did not reveal the law of death, it would be enough to cause a commotion. But now it was different. The law of death was the strongest law in the world. And this child had already comprehended the 4th profound. He was only 1 step away from the 5th profound. And in addition to the law of death, this child's law of slaughter had also comprehended the 4th profound. In other words, as long as he worked hard, he would soon step into the early stage Dominator realm. And in some aspects, this person was better than Qin Feiyang, because Qin Feiyang had only comprehended the law of cause and effect to the 4th profound. What are you guys still standing there for? The old man in red roared. Finally, all the big shots quivered and immediately rushed over, surrounding the madman. Madman looked at these people in astonishment and frowned. Are you guys planning to gang up on me? Hearing this, the vice leader and the others' mouths twitched. With your monstrous talent, who would be willing to gang up on you? Mo Wu Hui, right? The Hall of Famers looked at Madman with a smile. What do you want? Let me tell you, I have no interest in men, especially an old man like you. Madman covered his chest with both hands and stared at the Hall of Famers vigilantly. Hearing this, the Hall of Famers' face turned black. Is this kid sick? What is he thinking? Chapter 3203. How could Frenzy not know what these people wanted to do? But he just had to play dumb. Previously, they didn't show up, but now that he showed the law of death, they all came out one by one. How could they let him stay in the Hall of Famers? Mo Wu Hui, your brother has become my personal disciple. You should know that, right? The vice leader chuckled. I know. Frenzy nodded. Old man Yi, what are you trying to do? It's not enough to have Mo Wu Hui and you still want to snatch him? Let me tell you, one must know how to be content. The palace master of the Hall of the Exalted glared at the deputy alliance master. This is because I cherish talents. The vice leader chuckled. Don't say such high-sounding words to this old man. Anyway, others are qualified to snatch him, but you are not. The Hall of Famers snorted. You have to make your words clear. I am the vice leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. How can I not be qualified? The vice leader was also angry. Because you already have a disciple. Why are you still snatching him? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? The Hall of Famers said angrily. laughed at. That doesn't exist. If those brothers become my disciples, I don't know how many people will be envious. The vice leader smiled faintly. Shameless. The Hall of Famers' face was full of contempt. Cough, cough. Can we really snatch him? At this time the great elder spoke. The other elders also looked at the Hall of Famers expectantly. The Hall of Famers heard this and glared fiercely. Look at this old man's eyes. Can you understand? The 9 of them smiled bitterly. They knew it had nothing to do with them. Mo Wuhue, this old man doesn't like to beat around the bush. Come and be my disciple. This old man has mastered the law of time. If you follow this old man will teach you everything. One day, when you comprehend the law of time, you will have mastered the 2 strongest laws. The Hall of Famers took the lead in tempting him. Law of time? Frenzy was slightly stunned and suddenly couldn't help but be tempted. Everyone knew that experience was the most important thing. Even if he didn't eat it, it could still help the Fire Lotus because the Fire Lotus had grasped the law of time. If he could get an explanation and experience about the laws of time, it would definitely be of great use to the Fire Lotus. Mo Wuhue, you can't be too greedy when it comes to the laws of death. It's already very impressive that you could fully comprehend the laws of death. This is something that I can help you with. The vice leader smiled confidently. Help me? Madman was stunned. That's right. To tell you the truth, I've also mastered the law of death. The vice leader said in a low voice. What? Madman was shocked. This old thing actually grasped death law. Don't listen to him. You can't be greedy. That's only for ordinary people. With your talent, you don't need to consider such things at all. Besides, no matter how powerful the laws of death are, how can they be more practical than the laws of time? Look at this Hall of Fame. If it wasn't for this old man using the laws of time to set up the time array, how could these disciples improve so quickly? So, in terms of merit, in terms of contribution to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, this old man is much more than some old things. The Hall of Famers smiled proudly. That's true. Madman nodded. I'm really envious. Yeah. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance has been established for so many years, but this is the first time I've seen such a scene. The vice leader and the hall master are fighting to take in disciples, and the great elder and the rest obviously have the same idea. Unfortunately, in front of the vice leader and the hall master, they can only stand aside. The surrounding disciples looked at Madman with envy. This was a kind of glory, although the vice leader and the Hall of Famers had also fought over Qin Fang. They didn't know about it, so this was the first time they saw such a scene. At the same time, the vice leader stared at Madman and said, "What's right? The time array is indeed more practical, but is it useful when facing the enemy? When facing the enemy, it's still necessary to have a powerful method. As for the law of death, you've already comprehended the 4th profound. I believe you don't need me to tell you how powerful it is. It's much stronger than the law of time." After the vice leader finished speaking, he didn't forget to look at the Hall of Famers with disdain. What? Much stronger than the law of time? Old man Yi, I'm not convinced by your words. Why don't we go to the fighting arena and see who's stronger? The Hall of Famers said with a cold face. Sure, I'm not afraid of you. The vice leader sneered. Then let's go. The Hall of Famers shouted. The great elder hurriedly went forward and persuaded them. I say, the 2 of you, there are so many disciples watching. Can you not be so embarrassing? The 2 of them were slightly stunned. They looked at the surrounding disciples and shouted in unison, What are you looking at? Do you think you can compare with Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhue? Hurry up and go cultivate. The group of disciples shrank their necks and immediately turned to flee. But in their hearts they felt wronged. If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you venting your anger on us? Disciples also have human rights, okay? The great elder shook his head and sighed. The two of you should stop fighting. First, ask Mo Wuhue's opinion, because until now, he hasn't said that he wants to be your disciple. The two of them were stunned and immediately looked at Frenzy at the same time. Frenzy's eyes flashed, and he said with a smile, "I'm really not interested in being your personal disciple. Goodbye." The two of them froze. The great elder and the others were also stunned. "Not interested? You can't leave." When they came back to their senses, the old man in red immediately stopped Frenzy. "Elder, what do you mean? If I don't agree today, I won't be able to leave the hall?" Frenzy raised his eyebrows. Don't be angry, don't be angry. It's a good thing that the vice leader and the hall master want you as their disciple. Think about it. If you agree, then in the future, won't you be able to do whatever you want? Let's talk about it later. Your younger brother has already become the vice leader's disciple. Whether it is resources or connections, he is now stronger than you. So, if no one helps you, then your younger brother will surpass you sooner or later. The old man in red pulled Frenzy to the side and whispered, "That seems to make sense." Frenzy nodded. "What do you mean it seems to make sense?" The old man in red rolled his eyes at him. "Then give me a suggestion. Who should I choose?" Frenzy asked softly. "In terms of selfishness, I definitely want you to choose my big brother. After all, your younger brother is already the vice leader's disciple. Then my big brother can't be left out. And I also understand my big brother. Even if you too choose the vice leader, he won't take his anger out on you, but his self-esteem will definitely be hurt. But I still have to respect your choice. I just hope that our rogue cultivator alliance can develop in a balanced manner." The old man in red smiled. The so-called balance was actually hinting at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers. If Qin Feiyang and Frenzy both became the vice leader's disciples, then this balance would no longer exist. Moreover, the future achievements of the two would definitely not be low. At that time, the vice leader could rely on his two disciples, Qin Feiyang and Frenzy, to suppress the Hall of Famers. This was not what the old man in red wanted to see. Although he knew that his big brother was not interested in things like power as his younger brother, he definitely had to think more about it. In short, he couldn't let the vice leader dominate. That makes sense. Frenzy pondered for a while, then turned his head to look at the vice leader and the Hall of Famers and said, "I agree, but I heard that my brother got a lot of treasures from your hands. Why can't you favor one and discriminate against the other?" This was his ultimate goal. When the two heard this, they were stunned. "If you don't give it to me, then it means that you look down on me. If you look down on me, then why would I ask for trouble and run to become your disciple?" Frenzy pursed his lips. "This is a small matter. As long as you agree, this old man will immediately give it to you." The Hall of the Exalted Lord was the first to express his stance. He took out a long iron box and 2 palm-sized jade boxes. Frenzy's eyes suddenly lit up as he nodded and said, "Then it's decided. Master, please take care of me in the future." The Hall of Famers smiled. The vice leader was stunned. He agreed just like that? He hadn't expressed his opinion yet. The Hall of Famers looked at the vice leader and smiled proudly. "Old Manny, if you continue to poach him now, then you really won't be honest." The vice leader's face darkened. Originally, he really wanted to fight for it, but when he heard this, he was at his wit's end. Because it was true. Frenzy had already agreed. If he continued to poach him, then it would mean that he wasn't a good person. At that time, not only the Hall of Famers, but even the elders would despise him. What a pity! Why didn't he rush to express his opinion in front of the Hall of Famers? He missed such a monstrous disciple, just like that. "You're good enough. You have Mo Fengyuan, and I have Mo Wuhui. It's the best of both worlds. Besides, if Mo Wuhui really follows you, do you have the energy to teach so many people? Don't forget, you still have a grandson." The Hall of Famers said. All right, right. Stop nagging. I didn't say that I would continue to poach him. The vice leader glared at the Hall of Famers, then looked at Frenzy and smiled. You brothers are the future pillars of our rogue cultivator alliance. Work hard. Although you didn't become my disciple, if there's anything you don't understand in the future, you can always ask me. Okay. Frenzy nodded. Then, that's it. Dismissed. The vice leader waved his hand and turned to leave. The 9 elders looked at the Hall of Famers enviously and also turned to leave. When would they be able to find such an outstanding disciple? After the Hall of Famers watched the vice leader and the 9 elders leave, he looked at Frenzy and smiled. Kid, you have good taste. If you follow me, I guarantee that your future will be worry-free. That's secondary. I'm really interested in the law of time. Why don't you explain it to me now? Frenzy put away the metal box and the 2 jade boxes and asked sneakily. Sure, let's go. The Hall of Famers chuckled and brought Frenzy to the square where the exit of the trial grounds was. Chapter 3204. As expected of Blood Brothers, they have hidden it so well. The green-robed woman stood in front of the cave and looked at the back of Madman. She then looked at the 3rd cave, her eyes filled with indignation. Sister Dandin, why do I feel that you seem to be prejudiced against them? They don't seem to have done anything to you. Zhao Shaojin looked suspiciously at the green-robed woman. Anyway, I just don't like them. The green-robed woman snorted and returned to the cave. Zhao Shaojin smiled helplessly, glanced at the 3rd cave, and also entered the cave. Black Dragon was also watching the show. After everyone left, he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. What kind of monsters were Mo Yuan and Mo Wu Hui? Then, it turned and flew to the front of the cave, looked at Huoluan and said, You've worked hard. It's nothing. Huoluan quickly smiled. All right then, I'll go in first. You continue to guard and don't let anyone in. With that said, the Black Dragon entered the cave abode. What about me? Huoluan hurriedly asked. Don't worry, I remember everything. I'll help you ask Mo Yuan later. Black Dragon smiled without looking back. After entering the cave, he saw Qin Feiyang sitting alone in front of the tea table with his head lowered in contemplation. What are you thinking about? Black Dragon waved his claws and set up a barrier around the cave as he looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Cough, cough. I'm thinking about this big brother of mine. He actually mastered the law of death. Qin Feiyang's expression was also filled with shock. Aren't you blood brothers? How come you don't even know his law of death? Black Dragon was stunned and looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang. I've asked him before, but he has always been mysterious. If he wasn't forced to reveal it this time, I don't know how long he would hide it from me. Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and said, Forced to? Black Dragon was stunned and said in surprise, Could it be that he deliberately revealed it? In order to obtain those heaven-defying treasures from the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang nodded. You 2 brothers are really cunning. Black Dragon shook his head and smiled bitterly. Same here. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Speaking of which, what should we do with the Fire Luan? Black Dragon asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, Let it in. All right. The Black Dragon nodded. With a wave of its claw, the enchantment dissipated. It said to the door, Brother Huoluan, come in quickly. Whoosh! Huoluan immediately ran in. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Don't be so excited. I don't have a way to make your bloodline reach ancestral awakening yet. No way. Huoluan was stunned. That's right. I don't want to hide it from you. I really have no choice. So now you have 2 paths. First, you continue to follow me. I'll think of something. Second, leave. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance is not a place where you ferocious beasts can stay for long. It's best if you all leave. Qin Feiyang smiled. You're quite honest. Hualuan looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. I've always been very sincere to ferocious beasts because there are many ferocious beasts around me, and even divine beasts. So I understand you. Although you're ferocious by nature, you're also straightforward. As long as you recognize a friend, you'll never betray them. Qin Feiyang smiled. Even the black dragon was a little surprised by these words. It didn't expect this human to know so much about them. Hualuan asked, What kind of divine beasts do you have around you? Many. 5-clawed golden dragon, blood kirin, and white jade kirin. I also know a hellhound and a fire kirin. Of course, there's also brother black dragon. Qin Feiyang smiled. So many? Hualuan was surprised. I've seen divine beasts before, so naturally there are more. You might not know, but I've seen a whole group of dragons before. There are countless mystical dragons in the dragon clan, such as black dragons, white dragons, golden dragons, silver dragons, and so on. Qin Feiyang said. Dragons? Not only Hualuan, but even the black dragon was shocked. Haven't you heard of dragons? Qin Feiyang looked at them suspiciously. No. The two beasts shook their heads. Qin Feiyang frowned without leaving a trace. Were there really no dragons in the Sky Cloud realm? But that's not right. There were dragons in the ancient realm, so why weren't there any in the Sky Cloud realm? Could it be that dragons were born in the ancient realm? But this didn't make sense, because there was also the ice dragon. Now that the situation was confirmed, the ice dragon should be in the Sky Cloud realm. Since the ice dragon was in the Sky Cloud realm, there should be dragons in the Sky Cloud realm. What the hell was going on? Also, the celestial dragon god sword and the ice dragon's sacred sword, the two sovereign divine weapons, had now appeared in the Blood Hall. Then, would the dragon's revered dragon and princess dragons also be in the Blood Hall? Blood Hall! It seemed that he had to find an opportunity to investigate this situation. Shaking his head, Qin Feiyang looked at Hualuan and said with a smile, I won't force you. You decide. You don't have to worry because no matter what decision you make, it won't affect our relationship. This, Hualuan was hesitant. There was no other way. Logically speaking, there was no need to continue staying here. However, this person was able to transform the black dragon, which meant that his ability was certain. Maybe he could find a way in the future? If he left like this, wouldn't he miss this opportunity? Why not stay and see the situation first? Hualuan pondered for a while and finally made a decision. How about this? I'll follow you first. If there's no other way, I'll leave. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. As long as Hualuan stayed, he had a way to make Fire Lotus not leave in the future. Just as the Black Dragon said, Hualuan was a paragon sovereign. Keeping it by his side would definitely be of great use. Now go and send the other beasts out, lest they become the thugs of the rogue Cultivator Alliance. Qin Feiyang said. The other beasts weren't weak either. If they continued to stay in the rogue Cultivator Alliance, they would become a member sooner or later. This wouldn't be good for him in the future. Oh, Brother Amo, from what you said, why do I feel that you don't like the rogue Cultivator Alliance? The Black Dragon looked at him suspiciously, because if it were other members of the rogue Cultivator Alliance, they would be more than happy to have them stay. After all, they could strengthen the rogue Cultivator Alliance. It's not that I don't like the rogue Cultivator Alliance. I just don't want them to become cannon fodder for the rogue Cultivator Alliance. Qin Feiyang smiled. So that's how it is. This emperor didn't misjudge you. You're a pretty good human. The Black Dragon laughed. You flatter me. I'm just putting myself in their shoes. Beasts also have life and dignity. Why should they become cannon fodder for a human? Qin Feiyang said. The Black Dragon and Hualuan looked at each other. If they hadn't seen with their own eyes that this person was a human, they would have suspected if this person was a beast. Go. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay, the two beasts turned and rushed out of the cave, disappearing at lightning speed. Qin Feiyang also followed behind the entrance of the cave, setting up a lightning barrier. Then he entered the Black Tortoise world and stood in front of the ancient castle with a thoughtful look. Ancient castle, where are the black dragon's heavenly tribulations? After a while, he asked. At that time, the black dragon's heavenly tribulations had all disappeared in the ancient castle. No one would believe that they had disappeared from the world. Therefore, they should be hidden somewhere in the ancient castle. In a cultivation room on the second floor, these heavenly tribulations are very powerful. Don't mess around. The voice of the ancient castle sounded. Qin Feiyang immediately closed his eyes. Soon, he found the missing heavenly tribulations in a cultivation room on the second floor. But now, there were only 8 heavenly tribulations inside. Each of them emitted a terrifying aura. If it wasn't for the stone door of the cultivation room, the entire Black Tortoise world would be finished. That's not right. Why are there only 8 heavenly tribulations? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. He clearly remembered that when he comprehended the 5th profound, all the heavenly tribulations disappeared in the ancient castle. Although he didn't pay much attention to it, there should be at least 80 to 90 heavenly tribulations. I merged all the heavenly tribulations together and then divided them into 8. Now I have good control over the power of these 8 heavenly tribulations. Each of them is enough to instantly kill a perfect sovereign. This is specially prepared for you. Otherwise, when you meet such a powerful enemy in the future, you won't have the power to fight back. The ancient castle said. Each of them can instantly kill a perfect sovereign. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. That's right, but the opponent must be unprepared and be caught off guard. If the opponent is well prepared, they will at most be seriously injured. The ancient castle said. That's still very powerful. Qin Feiyang exclaimed. This meant that he had 8 trump cards. Although it was only a one-time use, he was satisfied. After all, he could seriously injure a perfect sovereign. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, Then if I change these 8 heavenly tribulations into one, how powerful will it be? Then it will definitely be stronger. Even if a perfect sovereign is protected by a supreme, heaven-defying divine artifact, it will still be able to instantly kill him. However, if you want to use it to deal with a sovereign weapon, it's still far from enough. The ancient castle said. I know that. Qin Feiyang nodded. If the power of this heavenly tribulation was comparable to a sovereign weapon, the ancient castle wouldn't be able to block it at all, let alone being sealed in the cultivation room. In any case, this is just a precautionary measure. You have to rely on yourself for everything. Becoming stronger is your greatest capital, the ancient castle warned. What it meant was that Qin Feiyang shouldn't rely too much on these external things. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded and then asked, Did you already know that senior brother Frenzy grasped the law of death? Of course. He was cultivating in seclusion in my body. How could I not know? The ancient castle said. Then why didn't you tell me? Qin Feiyang wasn't satisfied. We respect the privacy of others. The ancient castle said indifferently. You should know about the white-eyed wolf situation, right? Qin Feiyang asked. The ancient castle responded. All right, I won't ask any more. Anyway, I will know sooner or later. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. Even if he asked, the ancient castle wouldn't tell him. Why waste his breath? Next, he entered the cultivation room and began to ponder about the karma law and the other 5 laws. Chapter 3205. A large number of beasts leaving the Rogue Cultivator Alliance would naturally cause a commotion. However, with Black Dragon and Fire Luan around, no one dared to stop them. For the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, the other beasts weren't important. Even Fire Luan didn't matter. The most important thing was that Black Dragon didn't leave. After all, a divine beast was still very meaningful to the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. After sending away all the beasts, Black Dragon and Fire Lawn didn't immediately return to the Hall of the Famers. Instead, they wandered around the Azure Wave Snow Mountain, because the Azure Wave Snow Mountain was still very unfamiliar to them. 2 days later, Madman finally returned to the Hall of the Famers. After entering the Black Tortoise Realm, he immediately found Fire Lotus and told her everything about the time law he got from the Fire Lotus. This was undoubtedly a good fortune for Fire Lotus, so she was very grateful to Madman and immediately went into seclusion. 2 days outside, and 2,000 years have passed here. How's your comprehension of the law? Hull. Madman looked at Qin Feiyang and snickered. Don't be so proud. Isn't it just mastering the death law? I also have the cause and effect law, okay? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. Then this daddy has already comprehended the fourth profound of the slaughter law. What about you? Madman chuckled. Qin Feiyang helplessly shook his head and said, There's something we need to discuss. What is it? Madman was suspicious. What is our purpose in coming to the Sky Cloud Realm? Qin Feiyang asked. Rescue the Sword Emperor, Mermaid Emperor, Blackwing Emperor, Whitewing Emperor, and investigate your ancestors' background. Also, find the small beast and take back Changshui. Of course. Revered Dragon naturally won't let it go. Madman said one by one. Yes, but now it's not the same for us to stay in the Eastern continent. So these 2 days I pondered about it. Now that both of us have stepped into the half-step Dominator realm, although it's still far from the Blood Hall, it shouldn't be a problem for us to protect ourselves. Why don't we go to the Western continent and take a look? Qin Feiyang asked. This Madman pondered. This was no child's play. It would be fine if the Blood Hall only had one sovereign divine weapon. But now, both of the dragon's sovereign divine weapons were in the Blood Hall. If they really fought, they would be the ones to suffer. Logically speaking, staying in the Eastern continent and keeping a low profile was the wisest choice. When they were all strong enough, who would be afraid of whom? However, if he really had to wait until he broke through to become a Paragon Dominator before going to the Western continent, who knew how long he would have to wait? For now, we don't need to think about our ancestors' past, because they have already gone to look for it themselves. As for Changshui, small beast is too strong. We are no match for it. So now, all we can do is go to the Western continent and think of a way to rescue the Sword Emperor and the others. Qin Feiyang said. What about the Eastern continent? Madman asked. We are just passers-by in the Eastern continent. Whether it's the Rogue Cultivator Alliance or the Demonic Hall, they're just a transitional period for us. Qin Feiyang said. You can't say that. To deal with the Blood Hall, our strength is far from enough. So, we can still rely on the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demonic Hall when necessary. Madman shook his head. You mean cooperate with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demonic Hall? Qin Feiyang asked. Yes, the enemy of an enemy is a friend. Besides, hasn't the Demonic Hall been looking for us? With the help of the Demonic Hall, it will definitely be much easier to deal with the Blood Hall. As for the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, actually there is also a possibility of cooperation, and this key point is the Vice Alliance leader. The Vice Alliance leader colluded with the Blood Hall. This is a huge taboo. If we can help the Rogue Cultivator Alliance get rid of the Vice Alliance leader, then we can really turn enemies into friends with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. But before that, we have to investigate this alliance leader. If he also colludes with the Blood Hall, then our situation won't be good. Madman said. I think so too. But now we don't even know where the alliance leader is. How can we investigate? Qin Feiyang frowned. This matter is really a little strange. Madman rubbed his forehead. Why is it strange? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. To tell you the truth, I have been with the Hall of Famers for the past 2 days. In fact, I have already indirectly asked him about the Alliance leader's situation. But guess who he found out about it? He actually doesn't know where the Alliance leader is. He even said that he couldn't contact the Alliance leader thousands of years ago. Madman said. It can't be. Qin Feiyong had a look of surprise. If it was said that ordinary members of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance couldn't contact the Alliance leader, then it would be reasonable. But the Hall of Famers was the top 3 in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. His position was second only to the Alliance leader. How could he not be able to contact him? Madman asked. Have you asked the Vice Alliance leader? No. I just gained his trust, so I didn't dare to ask too many questions. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Then how about this? You find a chance to ask him. I will also go and ask around. I don't believe that such a large rogue cultivator alliance doesn't have anyone who knows the whereabouts of the alliance leader. Madman said. All right. Qin Feiyong nodded and reminded. However, you can't directly ask around, lest you arouse suspicion. Don't worry, I still know this common sense. Madman smiled proudly. Qin Feiyong smiled. With Madman's ability to do things, he could definitely rest assured. Suddenly, he was stunned and patted his head. How could I forget about it? What? Madman was suspicious. The fire dragon we met in the trial ground. Based on the attitude of Yi Tian and the others, it's obvious that its position in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance isn't ordinary. Maybe it knows something, Qin Feiyong said. Yeah, how could I forget about it? Madman also patted his head hard. When Zhao Shaojin and I came out of the trial ground, this Hall Master was extremely reserved in front of the fire dragon. I think its position in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is probably above the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers. Qin Feiyong analyzed. In that case, it might have a direct relationship with the Alliance leader? Madman was shocked. That's right. Qin Feiyong nodded and then said, However, I also heard that after it came out of the trial ground, it disappeared without a trace. Where are we going to find it? Nothing in this world is difficult for those who are willing. I will investigate this matter first. One more thing, Zhao Eryong was killed. We have to find another person now. Otherwise, it will be troublesome to leave the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Madman said. I have already thought about this matter. There are a total of 10 people guarding the barrier. We know Interrogation Officer 2. As for the other 9, we're very unfamiliar with them. If we try to persuade them, it will definitely be very troublesome. It might even cause a big mess. Qin Feiyong pondered. Then, you mean we should make a move on Interrogation Officer 2? Madman asked. No. Interrogation Officer 2 is the Vice Alliance leader's confidant. We definitely can't look for him. However, I do have a suitable candidate in mind. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. Who? Madman was curious. Zhang Diyuan. That is Zhang Sanbao's father. Now he is already under my control. If he replaces Interrogation Officer 2 to guard the border, then we don't have to do a lot of things. Qin Feiyong smiled. But this person used to be the city, Lord of East City. Now that we ask him to guard the border, will he agree? Madman asked. Do you think he still has a choice? Because of Zhang Sanbao and Zhang Santian, as well as the sneak attack on me last time, the Vice Alliance leader and the other higher-ups are already quite dissatisfied with him. If he doesn't listen to my arrangements, I guarantee that he won't live past tomorrow. As for replacing Interrogation Officer 2, that is even simpler. When the time comes, I will just casually say a few words in front of the Vice Alliance leader, and he will be able to take up the position. Qin Feiyong smiled. All right then, I'll leave this matter to you. Madman nodded. But the problem now is that I can't show up. As Black Dragon said, if I show up now, they will definitely ask how I reconstructed my body and soul so quickly. If I don't find a suitable reason, Then they will be suspicious when the time comes. Qin Feiyang rubbed his temples. He never thought that there would be a day when the time array of the Black Tortoise realm would make him worry. That is indeed a problem. Madman nodded. At that time, Qin Feiyang was at the Perfection Undead realm. To reconstruct the body and soul of a Perfection Undead realm expert, it would take at least tens of thousands of years or even longer. So now, Qin Feiyang would have to wait tens of thousands of years before he could show up. After tens of thousands of years, the daylily would be cold. How about this? When the time comes, you can say that after helping Black Dragon successfully pass the tribulation, you also obtained some good fortune, so your body and soul were reconstructed so quickly. Madman said, "Will that work?" Qin Feiyang frowned. In any case, these people haven't passed the tribulation. Even if what we say is false, they can't verify it. Besides, everyone's opportunities and good fortune are different. Just because they haven't seen it before doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Madman chuckled. Makes sense. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then nodded with a smile. All right, let's say it like that. All right then, I will first inquire about the whereabouts of the Fire Dragon and the Alliance leader. I will leave Zhang de Yuan's matter to you. After dealing with these matters, we can officially challenge the Bloodhull. Madman's eyes flashed coldly. At the same time, I look forward to our next encounter with the Prince of the Dragons. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Haha. Madman laughed loudly. The two left the Black Tortoise world and appeared in the cave. Madman directly left. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then also left the cave and flew toward the Alliance capital. Isn't that Mo Fengyuan? He reconstructed his body and soul so quickly. Oh my God, he must have cheated. And his cultivation is also at the half-step ruler realm. As expected, he has successfully comprehended the fifth profound of the Law of Thunder. This pair of brothers is simply monsters. Qin Feiyang's appearance immediately caused a sensation in the Hall of the Exalted. Chapter 3206. Alliance Capital, Central City District. The Vice Alliance Master sat alone in the pavilion in the courtyard, thinking about something as he drank tea. Swoosh! A figure descended in front of the courtyard. It was Qin Feiyang. Disciple greets Master. Qin Feiyang stood in front of the door and cupped his fists. The Vice Leader was stunned. He raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang with a surprised expression. Come in. Qin Feiyang pushed open the courtyard's door and walked into the pavilion, standing in front of the Vice Leader. The Vice Leader sized up Qin Feiyang for a moment and said in surprise, You've really reconstructed your physical body and divine soul. How did you do it? So fast? Disciple isn't sure. After I helped Black Dragon overcome his tribulation, a divine light descended from the sky and merged into my body. Then, not long after, my physical body and divine soul were reconstructed. Qin Feiyang said, There's such a thing. Master has heard that only living beings who undergo tribulation will be blessed by the heavens. I didn't expect that the person who helped to undergo the tribulation would also receive such a fortuitous encounter. The Vice Leader's face was filled with surprise. It might have something to do with the lightning law I comprehended back then. When I passed the heavenly tribulation and comprehended the lightning law, I was in a mysterious space the entire time. In any case, Disciple can't explain it clearly. However, to be able to reconstruct my physical body and divine soul so quickly is indeed a fortuitous encounter. Qin Feiyang rubbed his head and smiled. That's true. The Vice Leader nodded and didn't probe any further. He smiled and said, Now that you've officially stepped into the ruler realm, how do you feel? I feel pretty good. I've improved in all aspects, far surpassing before. Qin Feiyang smiled. This is the benefit of stepping into the ruler realm. However, don't be complacent. In the Eastern continent, a half-step ruler is at most a mid-tier expert. As long as you become a perfected ruler or even a great perfected ruler, you'll have the ability to move unhindered, the vice leader warned. Disciple will remember. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then, why did you come to find Master this time? The vice leader asked with a smile. It's been a few days since I last saw Master. I missed him a little, so I came to pay him a visit. Qin Feiyang grinned. Smelly brat. The vice leader scolded with a smile, but his face was filled with a gratified smile. Qin Feiyang continued, Of course, there are also some questions regarding cultivation that I would like to ask Master. Sit down and talk. The vice leader pointed at the stone bench in front of Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang sat on the stone bench and said, Disciple has heard that above the fifth profound, there is a supreme profound, an ultimate profound. Is that true? You actually know about this. The vice leader was astonished. It's just hearsay, Qin Feiyang said. The vice leader poured a cup of tea and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Thank you, Master. Qin Feiyang caught the teacup. Above the fifth profound, there is indeed the ultimate profound and the ultimate profound. Moreover, these two profound are extremely terrifying. It's no exaggeration to say that if you comprehend the ultimate profound, even if you're only a half-step sovereign, you can still fight against a peak sovereign. The vice leader took a sip of tea and said with a smile, So strong? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes, the vice leader nodded and said, As for the ultimate profound, it's the ultimate profound in the world. As far as Master knows, no one in the sky cloud realm has comprehended the ultimate profound. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but be stunned. No one in the entire sky cloud realm has comprehended the ultimate profound? Do you know why our leader is called the number one person in the sky cloud realm in space-time law? The vice leader asked. I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. The reason is that he's only one step away from the ultimate profound, the vice leader said. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. The leader of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance was actually this powerful. However, although he's only one step away, this one step is the difference between heaven and earth. To successfully take this step is countless times harder than ascending to the heavens. The vice leader shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang asked calmly, Then is the leader in seclusion right now trying to comprehend the ultimate profound? I'm not sure. The vice leader shook his head. Not sure? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes, our leader comes and goes without a trace all day long. No one knows where he is. Master often tries to contact him, but I can't. I don't know where he's enjoying himself. The vice leader's expression was somewhat helpless. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. He couldn't contact the Hall of Famers and the vice leader. Why was that? As for the ultimate profound and the ultimate profound, don't force yourself too much. Right now, the most important thing for you is to raise your cultivation level, the vice leader warned. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. Then he asked curiously, Then how many people in our Rogue Cultivator Alliance have comprehended the ultimate profound? Only 3. The vice leader smiled. 3? One is definitely the leader. Could the other 2 be you and the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes, this is also the reason why the 10 great elders are inferior to us. Although they're all perfect sovereigns, they haven't comprehended the ultimate profound. Therefore, their strength is inferior to ours. However, the strength of these few elders shouldn't be underestimated, because they've basically all grasped the entrance to the ultimate profound. They're slightly stronger than ordinary perfect sovereigns. The vice leader smiled faintly. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. In short, for you, the ultimate profound should be left to its natural course. If you're lucky enough to enter an epiphany and comprehend the ultimate profound, That's naturally something worth celebrating. However, if you don't force it. After all, the road is paved one step at a time. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Otherwise, you'll end up with nothing. The vice leader warned again. Understood. Qin Feiyang nodded. He picked up his teacup and took a sip. Then he looked around and asked, "Where are the three Xing brothers?" "Them. Xingda and Xing San are both cultivating. Xing Heir is still guarding the border." The vice leader smiled. "Still guarding the border?" Qin Feiyang was astonished. "Yes. We haven't found a suitable candidate yet. We can only wrong him to help guard the border for now." The vice leader shook his head. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Wrong Xing Heir? For him to say this, it meant that the three Xing brothers really meant a lot to the vice leader. Qin Feiyang pretended to ponder for a while. Then his eyes lit up. He looked up at the vice leader and said, "Master, I've thought of someone who you can let replace Xing Heir." "Who?" The vice leader was stunned. "Zhang Diyuan," Qin Feiyang said. "Zhang Diyuan?" The vice leader was stunned. He asked, "The former city lord of East City who sneaked up on you?" "Yes. He has the perfected immortal realm, cultivation. He's the most suitable person to guard the border." Qin Feiyang nodded. "But he sneaked up on you. We can't trust him at all." The vice leader frowned. "Master, you worry too much. After so many things, do you think he still dares to mess around? Besides, he's the city lord of East City. Letting him guard the border is also a punishment." Qin Feiyang smiled. "So you deliberately took revenge on him. I knew it. How could you be such a magnanimous person?" The vice leader shook his head and laughed. "Ahem." Qin Feiyang coughed dryly. His expression was slightly awkward as he said, "Regardless of whether it's revenge or magnanimity, in any case, he definitely won't dare to act recklessly now. After all, the higher one's cultivation is, the more they care about their lives." "Okay, I'll think about it. By the way, there's one more thing. Since you're here, I'll ask for your opinion. I plan to let Li Fuyuan take over as the city lord of East City. What do you think?" The vice leader looked at Qin Feiyang inquiringly. "Li Fuyuan?" Qin Feiyang stared blankly for a moment before asking, "That person who helped disciples chase after Zhang Diyuan?" "That's right." The vice leader nodded. "I've met this person before, and he's trying to get close to me because he wants to be the city lord of East City. Originally, I didn't have a good impression of him. He's too snobbish, but thanks to him, I was able to stop Zhang Diyuan. So, putting everything else aside, this person should be trustworthy." Qin Feiyang said a few words tactfully. "Okay, I have an idea." The vice leader smiled and said, "Go back to the Hall of the Exalted and spend more time with Tian. After all, you're family with us now. You should take care of him." "I take care of him? Master, you're wrong. It should be Brother Yi who takes care of me." Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. "Don't play dumb. Who in the Hall of the Exalted doesn't know your talent now? Tian can't compare to you at all." The vice leader rolled his eyes. "Aren't you afraid that I'll become arrogant by praising me like this?" Qin Feiyang smiled. "With me around, do you think you can become arrogant?" The vice leader looked at him teasingly. "Forget it. I'd better continue to keep a low profile." Qin Feiyang laughed dryly. "In short, help Tian more in the future. After all, he's my grandson. I also hope that you can support each other like brothers," the vice leader said. "Don't worry. As long as I have the ability, I'll do my best to help Brother Yi," Qin Feiyang said solemnly. Good, good, good. Then why don't you stay and have a meal before leaving?" the vice leader asked. "Forget it. You're so high and mighty. How can you cook?" After Qin Feiyang said that, he got up and left. "Brat, are you doubting my cooking skills? Let me tell you, when I was young, I was also good in the kitchen." The vice leader stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. Who saw it? You're bragging. Qin Feiyang chuckled without looking back and disappeared like a flash of lightning. Bastard. The vice leader shook his head and scolded with a smile. The more he looked at this disciple, the more satisfied he was. After Qin Feiyang left the central city, he landed on a mountain peak. After pondering for a while, his eyes flashed and he took out the divine voice stone. Buzz! A shadow appeared. It was Zhang Deyuan. Get ready to replace Second Qing and guard the barrier, Qin Feiyang said. Guard the barrier? Zhang Deyuan was stunned. Qin Feiyang nodded. Yes, this is my arrangement. Don't ask why, just do it. But Zhang Deyuan obviously didn't want to go. Chapter 3207. No, buts, if you don't listen, I will go to Master now. You know what the consequences will be. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. No, I will listen. Zhang Deyuan hurriedly agreed. Qin Feiyang's expression eased a lot, and he asked, I asked you to collect the spirit vein and crystal vein. How much have you collected so far? Not much. After all, to collect the spirit vein and crystal vein, you have to leave the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Zhang Deyuan shook his head. Don't you have ready-made ones in the Alliance? Qin Feiyang frowned. The Alliance does have ready-made ones, but who is willing to give them to me? You also know that for those below the sovereign realm, spirit vein and crystal vein are indispensable. So, I can only send people to look outside. Zhang Deyuan said. Okay, but you have to remember that your men are not allowed to rob outside, Qin Feiyang said with a cold face. Understood. Zhang Deyuan nodded, repeatedly. After turning off the sound transmission stone, Zhang Deyuan found that his back was already dripping with cold sweat. Although Qin Feiyang's cultivation was much lower than his, when he faced Qin Feiyang, it was as if he was facing a mountain. There was a heavy sense of oppression. Half a month later, Madman finally returned. Inside the cave, the two sat opposite each other. How is it? Qin Feiyang poured a cup of tea for Madman. Madman moistened his throat and shook his head. I have inquired about the Hall of the Exalted, including the 4 major districts of the Alliance, but there is no trace of the Alliance Master. What happened? I went to find the Deputy Alliance Master, but he also said that he couldn't contact the Alliance Master. Qin Feiyang frowned. Do you think something happened to the Alliance Master? Madman was surprised. How is that possible? The strength of the Alliance Master is quite terrifying. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Although the whereabouts of the Alliance Master have not been found, the whereabouts of the Fire Dragon are little known. Madman said again. Where is it? Qin Feiyang hurriedly asked. According to my sources, it seems that someone saw it leaving the Azure Wave Snow Mountain from the north. However, I didn't manage to find out exactly where he went. Madman shook his head. Left the Kanglin Snow Mountain? Qin Feiyang frowned, pondered for a while, and said, It seems that the investigation strength of the two of us is far from enough. We still need help. After saying that, Qin Feiyang brought Madman to the Black Tortoise world and directly sent a message to Elder Hua. Is the Alliance Master not in the Alliance capital? Elder Hua was also surprised when he heard their pleas. Based on our current investigation, he shouldn't be in the Alliance capital, Qin Feiyang said. All right, I'll get Chu Yin to investigate. Elder Hua nodded. Wait. Seeing that Elder Hua was about to turn off the divine sound transmission stone, Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped him and said, Also, there's one more thing that I think you should know. What is it? Elder Hua looked at him suspiciously. Do you know its identity in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and a giant python appeared. This was the Fire Dragon's previous body. Elder Hua was startled and asked, You've seen it before? Yes. Furthermore, we even helped it pass its tribulation and transformed into the fire dragon. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then go and find it. It definitely knows the whereabouts of the Alliance Master. Elder Hu said. It's also gone now. We can't find it. Wait, from what you said, you know its identity. Qin Feiyang and Madman were surprised. Of course I know. The Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Alliance Master has two very powerful pythons. These two pythons are a couple, and their strength is second only to the Alliance Master in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Elder Hu said in a deep voice. Second only to the Alliance Master? Then aren't they stronger than the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang was shocked. It's not that they're stronger than them, but they're not weaker either. They both have grasped a supreme profundity. And the fire dragon you're talking about is the child of these two pythons. Hence, its status in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is relatively high. Therefore, I'm guessing that it definitely knows the whereabouts of the Alliance Master. Elder Huo explained. I see. Qin Feiyang and Madman were enlightened. Since it's gone, there's nothing we can do. How about this? You guys stay in the Alliance capital and wait for it to appear. Immediately find a chance to ask it. At the same time, I'll also ask Chuyin to send someone to look for them outside. Elder Hua suggested. All right, let's do that. Qin Feiyang nodded. Oh, right, I've also thought of something. I wonder if you guys have heard about it in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance? Elder Hua suddenly said. What is it? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at him suspiciously. A few days ago, someone from the Blood Hall sent a letter of challenge. Elder Hu said. A letter of challenge? The two of them were stunned. Yes. Elder Hu nodded and said. The general content is that the Blood Hall of the Western Land, the Demon Hall of the Eastern Land, the Sky Hall of the Southern Land, and the Deity Hall of the Northern Land are organizing an exchange meeting for the younger generation. Exchange meeting? Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. Don't think that this exchange meeting is just a simple chat and drinking tea. On the surface, it's an exchange meeting, but it's actually a battle between the four superforces. Elder Hu said. In other words, this is a spar? Qin Feiyang asked. Isn't the way you put it? This is a fierce battle. Moreover, according to my analysis, this matter... Speaking up to this point, Elder Hu looked at the two of them strangely and said, is directed at you guys. Directed at us? The two of them looked at each other. Yes. Because this so-called exchange meeting has never happened before. However, this time I just spread the news that you guys have secretly entered the Demon Hall, and the Blood Hall did this. Is there such a coincidence in this world? Moreover, I know the faces of those people from the Blood Hall very well. If they don't have a motive, they won't go through so much trouble. Therefore, this matter is definitely directed at you guys. They want to use this exchange meeting as an opportunity to get rid of you guys. Elder Hu chuckled. Then why are you still laughing? Qin Feiyang was speechless. This matter has nothing to do with me. Why can't I laugh? Moreover, as expected, they will definitely come up with various restrictions during the exchange meeting, such as your slaughter domain and sovereign divine weapon. Elder Hu looked at the two of them gloatingly. So what? We're not even in the Demon Hall. Madman pursed his lips. However, the key is that the Rogue Cultivator Alliance is also involved. Elder Hu said again. What? The Rogue Cultivator Alliance is also involved. Why don't we know about this? The two of them frowned. This exchange meeting is still in the process of being discussed, so there hasn't been any news yet. Elder Hu smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang asked. In that case, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will most likely let the two of us participate. This will depend on the decision of the Deputy Alliance Leader and the Hall of Famers. I'm telling you guys first, so that you can be mentally prepared. Elder Hu said, the Sky Hall and Deity Hall aren't stupid. They definitely know the purpose of the Blood Hall, so why would they still interfere? Qin Feiyang frowned. Of course, they're not stupid, but they're also very interested in you guys. As for whether they're friends or foes, I don't know. Elder Hush shook his head. All right, we'll pay attention. The current mission is still to find the Alliance leader and the fire dragon, Qin Feiyong said. Elder Hu nodded his head, and the projection dissipated. Exchange meeting. Madman lowered his head and pondered for a while before looking at Qin Feiyong and asking, What do you think of this matter? I think Elder Hu's analysis is right. The Blood Hall is really targeting us. However, we're in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, so there's no need to worry too much. Besides, the Deputy Alliance Leader and the Lord of the Hall of the Exalted may not let us participate. After all, our cultivation is still far from that of the older disciples. Qin Feiyong pondered. They're really persistent, but haven't they thought that even if we're in the demonic hall, we can just not participate? Madman sneered. If that's the case, they will definitely think of ways to force us to participate. For example, the reward. The person who gets first place will be rewarded with a supreme treasure. Can you resist this temptation? Qin Feiyong chuckled. If I didn't know their purpose, I definitely couldn't resist it. But now that I know, it's a different story. Madman smiled sinisterly. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Maybe they have some trump cards. At that time, we'll have to participate even if we don't want to. In short, we can't have too much luck with the Blood Hall style. Qin Feiyong shook his head. He had a strong premonition that this matter wouldn't be so simple. Chapter 3208. In just a few days, Zhang Diyuan took office. Naturally, the token to open the barrier had also fallen into his hands. For Qin Feiyong and the madman. This undoubtedly meant that they had one less worry. A few more days passed. Li Fuyuan finally received the order to succeed the East City Lord. This made him overjoyed. On the same day, he sent a voice transmission to Li Yuandao, asking Li Yuandao to invite Qin Feiyong to his house as a guest and prepare a big gift to express his gratitude. However, Qin Feiyong used the excuse of going into seclusion to politely refuse. This was because a snobbish person like Li Fuyuan could be contacted, but it was better to have as little contact as possible. Another half a month passed. Qin Feiyong finally received a message from Elder Hua. How's the investigation going? Qin Feiyong asked. Elder Hua shook his head and smiled. You don't know how mysterious this matter is. Mysterious? Qin Feiyong was stunned. This old man didn't find the whereabouts of the Alliance leader, but this fire dragon... At this point, Elder Hua's expression became incomparably strange, and he said, It's currently in our demon palace. What? In your demon palace? Qin Feiyong was stunned. Why would the fire dragon go to the demon palace? Back then, didn't you ask me to help you investigate? In the end, what a coincidence. That girl Chu Yin found a sneaky fire dragon outside the demon palace. Chu Yin caught it and asked, It was the fire dragon you mentioned. Elder Hua said, Sneaky? Why did it sneak to your demon palace? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. We asked, but it would rather die than say anything. Elder Hua shook his head. His cultivation wasn't much, but his bones were quite tough. Then where is it now? Qin Feiyong asked. It's locked up with Chu Yin. Elder Hua smiled. Then what do you want to do with it? Qin Feiyong asked with a smile. What do you think? Elder Hua asked. You're the ones who caught it. I don't have the right to decide. Qin Feiyong chuckled. Stop pretending. According to the relationship between our Devil Hall and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, we should have killed it. Because even if we kill it, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will have nothing to say. After all, it was the one who barged into the Devil Palace. However, this old man knows that you're also interested in it. That's why I kept it. Elder Hua said. All right. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly and nodded. I admit that I am indeed interested in it because I really want to know why it would take such a huge risk to go to your demon palace. This old man wants to know too. Elder Hu pondered for a moment and said, How about this? I'll give it to you when you have the time. Wait a moment. I have to come up with a plan for this. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and then lowered his head to ponder. What's there to plan? Elder Hua was bewildered. Based on its status in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance, I'm definitely unable to take control of it by force. Otherwise, I'll definitely be the one to suffer losses. So, I have to look for an opportunity to gain its trust. So long as I'm able to gain its trust, then it'll naturally tell me the reason. Qin Feiyang smiled. Is that so? Elder Hu came to a sudden understanding and nodded. All right, I got it. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly lit up, and he smiled. You'll pretend to execute it in public so that you can make an example out of it. After that, I'll seize the opportunity to rescue it from all of you. Kid, you really have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. Elder Hu roared with laughter, and then he thought for a moment and said, Then let's go to Ocean of Cloud City. However, you have to be prepared because the members of our Devil Hall won't show mercy to you. Of course, acting has to be realistic. Qin Feiyang grinned. You're really confident. All right, we'll do as you say. I'll get the law enforcers to take it to Ocean of Cloud City, and the execution will be held at the square at the center of the city. Elder Hu spoke. All right, Qin Feiyang nodded, and then he suddenly asked, Right, have you found those 2 spies I told you about? Of course, but we didn't alert them. Elder Hu chuckled. Who are they? Qin Feiyang was curious. That's none of your business. Elder Hu shook his head. Qin Feiyang laughed bitterly. I won't tell anyone. This matter is a great humiliation to our Devil Hall. So, the fewer people who know about it, the better. Let's get down to business. Elder Hu's projection vanished as soon as he finished speaking. Qin Feiyang shook his head, helplessly, but it was indeed so. The dignified overlord of the Eastern continent actually had an elder who was a spy from the Independent Cultivator Alliance. If news of this were to spread, the Devil Hall would definitely be ridiculed. Qin Feiyang put the transmission stone away and walked out of the castle. He stood in the main hall and gazed at one of the cultivation rooms before he smiled. Senior brother, you've come out. Time to get down to business. Bang! The stone door opened, and then Madman walked out and asked, Is there any news? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, We'll talk on the way. Both of them left the castle and appeared within the abode. Qin Feiyang pondered deeply for a short while before he walked out of the abode and arrived before the abode. Little Jean, are you there? It didn't take long. The energy of the laws that sealed the abode vanished, and then 2 figures walked out. It was Zhao Xiaojin and the green-clothed woman. What? I'm telling you not to have any improper thoughts about little Jean. The green-clothed woman gazed coldly at them. Big Sister Dandin. Zhao Xiaojin couldn't help but blush when she heard this. As for Qin Feiyang and Madman, they chose to ignore her. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhao Xiaojin and said with a smile, Let's go! Zhao Xiaojin was stunned. Where are we going? Didn't you say so? You want us to accompany you back to pay respects to your parents and brother? Qin Feiyang said. At the same time, he gave Zhao Xiaojin a meaningful glance. Pay respects to my parents and brother? Did I say that? Zhao Xiaojin was stunned, but when she noticed Qin Feiyang's gaze, she slapped her head and nodded. Yes. Look at me. I was so engrossed in my cultivation that I almost forgot about it. Let's go then. Qin Feiyang smiled. All right. Zhao Xiaojin nodded. Xiaojin, wait a moment. Why don't I accompany you? I'm worried if they accompany you. The green-clothed woman hurriedly stopped Zhao Xiaojin and whispered, What's there to be worried about? Don't tell me they'll eat me? Zhao Xiaojin was speechless. That might not be the case. The green-clothed woman snorted coldly, guarding against Qin Feiyang as if she was guarding against thieves. Sister Dandan, you're thinking too much. They're all good people, it's fine. Cultivate well, I'll be back soon. Zhao Xiaojin comforted her, then looked at Qin Feiyang and laughed. Let's go! Whiz! At that moment, the three of them soared into the air and flew towards the Alliance capital. Madman asked suspiciously, Zhao Xiaojin, is that woman crazy? Why is she always targeting us? Sister Dandan is actually quite a good person. It's just that her pride is too strong and she can't tolerate others ignoring her. As for the two of you, every time you see her, you treat her like air. You must feel uncomfortable. Zhao Xiaojin shook her head and laughed. To put it bluntly, it's the temper of a young miss. Madman looked down on her. She's a young miss to begin with. It's normal for her to have such a temper. There's no need to pay attention to her. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Qin Dage, Brother Mo, what the hell are you doing? I don't remember asking you to accompany me back. Zhao Xiaojin looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and Madman. I don't know either. Ask him. Madman pointed at Qin Feiyang. Zhao Xiaojin looked at Qin Feiyang. The situation is like this. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the matter of the fire dragon. Zhao Xiaojin knew their identities, so she didn't have to worry about anything. What does that have to do with me? Hearing this, Zhao Xiaojin asked suspiciously, This is just in case. Because think about it, when the Demon Palace executed the fire dragon, Senior Brother Madman and I happened to be there. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? So I thought of letting you go with us. This way, if someone asks, we can say that we're accompanying you back to pay respects and happen to encounter this matter. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly. You're really thoughtful. Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of admiration. After all, in such a situation, we have to be careful at every step. Qin Feiyang sighed. Then how's the investigation going? Zhao Xiaojin was curious. You want to know? Qin Feiyang asked. If you're willing to say, I'll listen. If you don't want to say, just pretend that I didn't ask. Zhao Xiaojin giggled. Qin Feiyang couldn't help but laugh and transmitted his voice. The matter has been investigated. The deputy leader is indeed colluding with the Blood Hall. What? Zhao Xiaojin's body stiffened. Don't doubt it. I have ironclad evidence in my hands now. Qin Feiyang thought to himself. What about Brother Yi Tian? Zhao Xiaojin hurriedly asked. Yi Tian has nothing to do with this. Qin Feiyang shook his head. What should we do? If Brother Yi Tian knows the truth, how can he bear it? Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of worry. Everyone needs a process of growth, and Yi Tian is no exception. Therefore, he has to face what he has to face. We can't help him with this matter. He can only bear it himself. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Why is the deputy leader so muddle-headed? Doesn't he know that colluding with the Blood Hall will not only harm himself, but also cause Brother Yi Tian irreparable harm? Zhao Xiaojin's face was full of anger. People who are blinded by greed have no rationality. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Wait, old Qin. This elder has said that he won't show mercy to us. If only the three of us go, won't it feel like we're sending ourselves to death? Madman suddenly frowned. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and nodded. It does feel like we're sending ourselves to death. It seems like we have to call Black Dragon and Hulwan. With their help, it shouldn't be a big problem. What about them? Madman asked. I don't know either. We have to look for them. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Buzz. Before he finished speaking, Qin Feiyang's voice transmission stone suddenly vibrated. Qin Feiyang's eyes had a trace of suspicion. He took out the voice transmission stone, and a figure quickly appeared. Li Yuandao. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. Brother Mo, you're not in the cave? Looking at Zhao Shaojin and Madman beside him, Li Yuandao couldn't help but be stunned. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly. No, I have to go out for something. Do you have something to do? If your father wants to invite me, wait until I return. Chapter 3209. My father is indeed looking for you, but it's not to invite you over as a guest, but to ask for your help. Li Yuandao's expression was filled with helplessness. What's the matter? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. You probably don't know yet, but the Black Dragon and Fire Luan by your side have been causing a ruckus in the East City these few days. My father has no choice but to ask for your help. Li Yuandao sighed. What? Qin Feiyong was startled. I knew it. You definitely don't know about this. Li Yuandao shook his head. What are they causing a ruckus about? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Actually, it's not that big of a ruckus. It's just that they like to go to restaurants to drink, and when they're drinking, they don't like to be disturbed. So whenever they go to a restaurant, they will chase the people inside out. Think about it. A restaurant is a place to do business. If they cause such a ruckus, how can others do business? So now, all the restaurant owners are looking for my father to solve this matter. Li Yuandao shook his head. Is that so? Qin Feiyong nodded in realization. The Black Dragon and Fire Luan are both related to you, so my father can't offend them, so he can only ask for your help. Li Yuandao sighed. Then which restaurant are they in now? Qin Feiyong asked. I heard from my father that they're in the Feng Chin restaurant. Li Yuandao replied. Feng Chin restaurant? Qin Feiyong and Zhao Shaojin were stunned. Wasn't that a famous brothel in the East City? Their conflict with Feng Wanyan was caused by this Feng Chin restaurant. These two fellows have such a hobby? Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched. Anyway, you should quickly take them away, lest they cause public anger. Li Yuandao smiled bitterly. All right, we'll go now. Qin Feiyong nodded and turned off the voice transmission stone. He helplessly looked at Madman and said, Seems like these two aren't good people either. Obviously. Madman shrugged his shoulders. Let's go. We have to pass by the Alliance capital anyway. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. Feng Chin restaurant. At this moment, all the guests, including the brothel keeper and waiters, were standing outside the door, their faces full of indignation. Within the restaurant's main hall, there was a 1-meter-long black dragon and a rooster-like bird sitting on a chair. There was a group of women around them, and they were all the Wind, Dust Pavilion's Wind Moon women. At this moment, all the women surrounded the black dragon and the chick, occasionally feeding them a piece of fruit or holding a wine cup to their mouths. They looked like they were serving two masters. Without a doubt, these two beasts were the Black Dragon and the Fire Luan. Mo Yuan. The brothel keeper looked at Qin Feiyong as if she had seen her savior. The others finally heaved a sigh of relief. The main character had finally arrived. Sure. Qin Feiyong made a shushing gesture to the group of people and then silently walked into the main hall. The Black Dragon and the Fire Luan were enjoying themselves. They did not notice Qin Feiyong at all. The women noticed, but under Qin Feiyong's hint, they did not make a sound. Qin Feiyong walked over, seeing them sitting on the chair with a satisfied expression. His face could not help but darken. Bird Master, Dragon Master, do you want me to massage your shoulders and legs? Qin Feiyong asked. Sure. The two beasts replied without hesitation. But as soon as they finished speaking, they realized something was wrong. This voice immediately. The two beasts quivered and stood up to look at Qin Feiyong. You both know how to enjoy yourself. Qin Feiyong laughed. No. The black dragon hurriedly waved its claws and laughed dryly. That Do you want a drink too? Come to your second uncle. Qin Feiyang's veins bulged, and directly gave the two beasts a knock on the head, and said angrily, "Look at you guys now! What's the difference between you and those human playboys?" This, cough cough. Bro, give me some face. The black dragon laughed awkwardly. You still know how to save face. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, Don't you think it's embarrassing enough? Let's go. It's just a drink. How embarrassing can it be? The black dragon and the fire Luan complained and helplessly got up and followed Qin Feiyang outside. The women finally heaved a sigh of relief. Young Master Amo, thank you. The brothel keeper stepped forward and was extremely grateful. It's fine. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, then looked at the people around him and cupped his hands. Everyone, I'm sorry for causing trouble for you. Don't worry. I will definitely restrain them in the future. Actually, it's not a big deal. Young Master Amo doesn't have to take it to heart. Of course, this was just polite words, because Qin Feiyang was now the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader, who would dare to offend him. Qin Feiyang smiled slightly, then looked at the two beasts and said, Let's go. Shua. At that moment, the 3 men and 2 beasts soared into the air and flew towards the border. I say, 2 big brothers, is wine that good to drink? After leaving the Alliance capital, Qin Feiyang looked helplessly at the black dragon and the fire Luan. You're a human. Why are you asking us? The black dragon was stunned. I don't drink, so I don't know what's so good about wine. Qin Feiyang said. So it's like that. Then you're really a weirdo. The black dragon despised. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Not drinking is a weirdo? What kind of logic is that? Fine, if you want a drink, I won't object, but you can't mess around. Do you know what kind of effect this will bring to me? Others will definitely scold me behind my back, saying that I'm indulging you and protecting you. I'm the disciple of the Vice Alliance leader. Can't you leave me some face? Also, don't you dislike being disturbed by others? Why are you letting a group of prostitutes serve you when you're in the Feng Qin Tower? Qin Feiyang looked at them with disdain. Cough, cough. It's just a feeling. You human women are quite interesting. The black dragon laughed embarrassedly. Scram. In short, don't use my name to act like a tyrant outside. I don't want others to point fingers at me behind my back. Qin Feiyang said. Fine, 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 we'll be careful next time. The black dragon nodded repeatedly. Qin Feiyang felt helpless. It seemed that he had to make a trip to the Heavenly Pleasure Tower to get some wine. Otherwise, who knew what kind of trouble these 2 fellows would cause in the future? Under the black dragon's lead, they quickly arrived at the border and met with Zhang Diyuan. When he saw Qin Feiyang again, Zhang Diyuan was like a little wife who had been wronged, causing Qin Feiyang to have goosebumps all over his body. Didn't he just ask him to guard the barrier? Was there a need to be so wronged? Cloud Sea City. It was bustling as always. Since his reason for coming out was to accompany Zhao Shaojin home to pay her respects, he naturally had to make a trip to the Zhao family. In front of the Zhao family's gate, Zhao, Shaojin, Qin Feiyang, and the black dragon appeared out of thin air. As for Madman and Huoluan, Qin Feiyang sent them to the Heavenly Pleasure Tower. Not only did the Heavenly Pleasure Tower produce their own immortal intoxication, but they also had Heavenly Mountain Dew and other fine wines that would definitely satisfy Huoluan and the Black Dragon. Young miss, the guards at the Zhao family's gate were stunned when they saw Zhao Shaojin suddenly return. What? Am I not welcome? Zhao Shaojin said with a cold expression. Welcome, welcome. Young miss, please come in. The guards repeatedly nodded. Upon entering the Zhao family, Qin Feiyang clearly noticed that the number of guards and servants in the Zhao family had decreased, and all of them had worried expressions. Besides that, the once majestic Zhao family was now covered in withered leaves, and weeds were growing out of the cracks in the stones. It was obvious that they hadn't been cleared out in a long time. But when they saw Zhao Shaojin return, A sliver of hope burned in the eyes of the Zhao family's guards and servants. "Cousin." Very soon, a young man in his 20s ran over with a few servants following behind him. "Zhao Feng?" Zhao Xiaojin was stunned. "Cousin, you finally returned." Zhao Feng was overjoyed. "Greetings, young Mississippi." The group of servants were also overjoyed. "He is?" Qin Feiyang was confused. "He's one of my uncle's sons. His name is Zhao Feng." Zhao Xiaojin messaged to explain, and then she coldly looked at Zhao Feng and indifferently said, "Don't think too much. I only came back to pay respects to my parents and little brother." After saying this, she left. "Cousin." Zhao Feng's expression froze as he hurriedly knelt on the ground and called out, "Cousin, please save our Zhao family." Zhao Xiaojin's eyebrows furrowed. "Father is dead, second uncle is dead, and the guards and servants have all run away. There are less than 50 people left in the Zhao family. The Zhao family doesn't even have a single person who can make decisions. If you don't do anything, our Zhao family will be destroyed sooner or later." Zhao Feng called out, "That's what you asked for." Zhao Xiaojin thought for a while before saying indifferently, "Yes, it's all my father and second uncle's fault, but they paid the price for it. Mo Yuan was there, and a person called Xing killed them with his own hands. And our Zhao family's soul and crystal veins were also taken by that Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. But now we don't hate anyone. We just hope that you can come back and revive our Zhao family." Zhao Feng said, "I've already said that I have nothing to do with the Zhao family. You should go find someone else." Zhao Xiaojin shook her head. The things that Zhao Yunhai and Zhao Yuntian had done had made her completely give up. Thus, no matter what happened to the Zhao family, she would not help them. Zhao Feng couldn't help but despair. At this moment, a guard hurriedly ran in and called out to Zhao Feng, "Young master, something big has happened." But before he could finish, the guard noticed Zhao Xiaojin. After a moment of surprise, he became ecstatic and bowed. "Greetings, young Mississippi. What's the big deal?" Zhao Xiaojin looked suspiciously at him. "It's like this. Not long ago, the enforcers of the Demon Palace brought a fire dragon to the square in the center of the city and announced that this fire dragon was from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. He trespassed on the Demon Palace and was captured by the Demon Palace. Now he will be executed on the spot." The guard hurriedly said. Qin Feiyang and Zhao Xiaojin glanced at each other, a sharp light flashing through their eyes. Chapter 3210. I'll go with Black Dragon. Qin Feiyang messaged. "Then you be careful," Zhao Xiaojin warned. Qin Feiyang nodded, and then he turned to Black Dragon and said, "Big brother Black Dragon, let's go." With a wave of its claw, Black Dragon immediately took Qin Feiyang and flew out of the Zhao family toward the plaza in the center of the city. Black Dragon. That's a divine beast. It was only now that the Zhao family members noticed Black Dragon's existence, and shock appeared on their faces. "Cousin, I'm begging you. If you don't care about the Zhao family will truly be finished." Zhao Feng began to plead. "That's right, young lady. This is the land of our Zhao family. If the Zhao family is gone, the land will be gone as well. Then your parents, your little brother, and the ancestors enshrined in the ancestral hall will all become wandering ghosts. Can you bear to see such a thing happen?" The guards and retainers also kneeled on the ground and begged. At the same time, at the plaza in the center of the city, at this moment there was a sea of people. 10 black-armored men stood in the plaza. They were tall and straight, and they all had a skull insignia on their bodies. They were the enforcers of the Demon Hall, and their cultivations were not weak. 9 of them were late-stage gods, and the leader was a perfected god. In the center of the plaza was a 10-some-meter-long fire dragon. It didn't have any injuries, but there was a bloody hole in its sea of energy. It was clear that its sea of energy had been crippled. The fire dragon is a divine beast. The demon hall is willing to kill it? So what if it's a divine beast? Who told it to be from the Wandering Cultivator Alliance? If the Wandering Cultivator Alliance dares to barge into the demon hall, isn't that just seeking death? Everyone was chatting. The enforcer leader looked up at the sky, then at a black-armored man next to him and barked, "Do it!" Yes, the black-armored man replied respectfully and took out a Zamadeo. It was more than 4 meters long and shone with a cold light. It was extremely sharp. This was also a peak-grade, heaven-defying divine artifact. Slash! The leader of the enforcers roared, and the black-armored man immediately raised his Zamadeo and chopped towards the fire dragon's head. The fire dragon's weak expression was filled with despair. But at this moment, boom! A terrifying divine aura surged, and the black-armored man was sent flying along with his Zamadeo. What? Someone actually dares to obstruct the Devil Hall's enforcers. Everyone was shocked. The fire dragon was also stunned. Whoosh! In the next instant, a man and a dragon appeared in front of the fire dragon. "It's you." The fire dragon looked at Qin Feiyang in astonishment. "What's wrong with you? How did it fall into the hands of the demon palace?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "It's a long story." The fire dragon sighed and said, "Hurry up and bring me away." Qin Feiyang nodded and waved his hand, bringing the fire dragon along. "Mo Fengyuan, you're openly challenging the Devil Hall. Do you know that?" The leader of the enforcers roared. "So what if I'm challenging the Devil Hall?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Good, good, good. I've long heard that you're an arrogant person. Now that I've met you, you're indeed worthy of your reputation." The leader of the enforcers looked extremely gloomy. "I'm arrogant. What can you do to me? Brother Black Dragon, cripple them." Qin Feiyang sneered. "Okay." The Black Dragon cackled, and the divine aura of a perfected sovereign surged out, imprisoning the 10 enforcers. What? It's actually a perfected sovereign divine beast. The 10 enforcers were horrified. At the same time, 10 strands of divine dragon energy surged into appearance and shot into their seas of energy. Shrill cries resounded as their seas of energy were crippled on the spot. "Well done. Kill them." The fire dragon roared. "We can't kill them. We can't afford to offend the Devil Hall. Quickly seize the opportunity while their experts haven't arrived to leave." Qin Feiyang hurriedly stopped the fire dragon, and then he nodded to the black dragon. The black dragon understood, and it immediately swept up Qin Feiyang and the fire dragon before it flashed out of the city and vanished amongst the mountains outside the city. Swoosh! At the same time that Qin Feiyang and the 2 divine beasts vanished, a figure descended from the sky above the square, and it was Elder Hua. "What's going on?" Elder Hua frowned. "My lord, it's Mo Fengyuan. He just happened to be in the city, and he had a perfected, sovereign, realm black dragon by his side. He made the black dragon heavily injure us and rescue the fire dragon." The leader of the enforcers hurriedly roared. "You can't even deal with such a small matter properly." Elder Hua glared at the enforcers, and then he gazed outside the square while a wisp of a smile flashed through his eyes. After that, he gazed at the 10 enforcers and shouted, "Go back. I'll personally look for the Alliance Master of the Independent Cultivator Alliance and ask him to give me an explanation." "Yes." The enforcers replied and left with Elder Hua. Mo Fengyuan is really audacious. "Yes. He's probably the only one who dares to seize someone right under the nose of the Devil Hall. Mo Fengyuan reminds me of Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo. They're both arrogant young men. I wonder what will happen when they meet. Is there even a need to think about it? It'll definitely be interesting. Moreover, Mo Fengyuan isn't ordinary as well. Of course. How could he be ordinary when he has a perfected sovereign realm divine beast by his side. According to my knowledge, even the Vice Alliance Master's eldest grandson, Yi Tian, doesn't have the protection of a divine beast. Even though the entire process was very short, Qin Feiyang's appearance instantly shook the entire city. Moreover, the news was swiftly spreading to the other cities. Outside the city, the black dragon stopped in the sky above a valley. There were many ferocious beasts in the mountains, but all of them fled when they sensed the black dragon's aura. Qin Feiyang withdrew an Origin Ocean divine pill and tossed it to the fire dragon. The fire dragon opened its mouth and swallowed it, and its shattered sea of qi immediately started to repair itself. What exactly happened to you? How did you fall into the hands of the Devil Hall for no reason? Otherwise, I would have accompanied Zhao Xiaojin back to pay respects to her parents and younger brother. You wouldn't even know how you died. Qin Feiyang frowned. Thank you. The fire dragon thanked him and fell silent. Qin Feiyang frowned. This fellow is definitely hiding something in his heart. Wham! The divine voice transmission stone rang. Qin Feiyang took out the divine voice transmission stone, and the madman and the fire one appeared. Where are you right now? The madman frowned. We're outside the city, Qin Feiyang said, and sent the coordinates to the madman. Then he sent a message to Zhao Xiaojin. Very soon, the madman and the fire one rushed over. The madman glanced at the fire dragon and asked via voice transmission, "How is it?" You've been silent since the beginning. Qin Feiyang sighed helplessly. The madman looked at the fire dragon and said, "Back at the trial grounds, we told you our identities. Do you still not believe us? If you really encounter any problems, you can tell us and we'll help you think of a solution." The fire dragon glanced at the madman and then at Qin Feiyang, but he still remained silent. You're going a little too far. We saved you in the trial grounds, and now we've saved your life again. Don't you trust us? The madman raised his eyebrows. When the fire dragon heard this, he couldn't help but struggle. Swish! At this moment, Zhao Xiaojin also came. Looking at the fire dragon in front of him, Zhao Xiaojin said in surprise, "It's really you. When I heard that the demon hall was going to execute a fire dragon, I thought it was a coincidence." The fire dragon glanced at Zhao Xiaojin and still didn't say a word. Has it always been like this? Zhao Xiaojin looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and asked secretly. Qin Feiyang replied and looked at the fire dragon. Running to the demon hall is not a joke. Are you investigating something? Don't worry. We will definitely not tell anyone, and you can completely trust us. The fire dragon struggled for a moment before looking up at the three of them. Can I really trust you? Of course. Qin Feiyang and the other two nodded. The fire dragon pondered for a moment, then looked up at the three of them and said, "All right, I'll tell you, but you have to promise me that you won't tell anyone else." "We promise." Qin Feiyang said, "All right, I went to the demon hall to investigate the whereabouts of my parents and the alliance leader." The fire dragon set up a soundproof barrier and said in a deep voice, "What? Investigate the whereabouts of your parents and the alliance leader." Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other in dismay. The fire dragon actually didn't know the whereabouts of the alliance leader and the others? This was too unexpected. That's right. As you said, my parents and the alliance leader are missing. The fire dragon sighed. How could they be missing? I've also heard about this from Master. Qin Feiyang frowned. I've never heard Master mention it either. The madman shook his head. Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers, they don't know either. They thought that the Alliance leader and my parents just went into seclusion or went to have fun. The fire dragon said. When he mentioned the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers, he paused for a moment, as if he had something to say. Then why didn't you tell them? Zhao Xiaojin was suspicious. The fire dragon paused again. You don't trust the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers? Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered as he asked. The fire dragon raised his head and looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise, as if asking, How did you know? As expected, Qin Feiyang muttered. He looked at the fire dragon and said, Actually, it's not difficult to guess. For you to hide such a big matter from them, it shows that you don't trust them. That's right. I just can't trust them. And it's precisely because the two of you are the disciples of the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers that I hesitated to tell you. The fire dragon looked at Qin Feiyang and the madman and sighed. What's the specific situation? Qin Feiyang frowned. A few thousand years ago, the Alliance leader and my parents went missing, but I didn't care at that time. Like the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers, I thought that they just went into seclusion. But a few hundred years ago, in a cultivation room in the Alliance capital, I inadvertently found a bit of dried blood in a corner. This is very abnormal. Why would there be blood in the cultivation room? So I thought of the worst possibility. Could they have encountered an accident? The fire dragon's gaze was extremely gloomy. Encountered an accident? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other. Black Dragon and Fire Luan were also shocked. One must know that whether it was the Alliance leader or the Fire Dragon's parents, they were peak existences in the Eastern continent. How could they have encountered an accident? And it was in their own cultivation room. Chapter 32:11. Just based on this bloodstain, isn't it a bit too childish to conclude that something bad happened to them? Qin Feiyang frowned. That's right. This little bit of blood doesn't mean anything. Maybe something went wrong during their cultivation and they spat out blood themselves. It's just that they didn't clean it up at that time. Moreover, the Alliance Master is known as the #1 in space-time law in the Sky Cloud realm. Even if someone wants to harm him, they might not be able to do it. Madman also said. I thought so too, but why can't I contact them? It's fine if the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers can't be contacted, but even I can't be contacted. That's not normal. As for what you said at the end, the Alliance Master is indeed the #1 in the Sky Cloud realm in terms of space-time law attainments. But what if the person closest to them wants to harm them? Fire Dragon said solemnly. The person closest to them? Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other. If that's the case, no matter how strong the Alliance Master is, he can't guard against it. Then what are you thinking? Xiao Jin frowned. To tell you the truth, I suspect that someone colluded with the Demon Palace and plotted against my parents and the Alliance Master. Fire Dragon said, What? Someone colluded with the Demon Palace? Qin Feiyang and the other two looked at each other in dismay. Why would Fire Dragon be so suspicious? One has to know that the real collusion is between the Vice Alliance Master and the Blood Hall. Wait, it doesn't know that the Vice Alliance Master is colluding with the Blood Hall. And the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Demon Palace have always been enemies, so the Alliance Master and his parents will naturally associate it with the Demon Palace. Qin Feiyang secretly said. So, it ran to the Demon Palace to investigate? Madman said. That should be the case. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Fire Dragon. Then, did you find anything in the Demon Palace? No. Before I sneaked into the Demon Palace, I was discovered by Chu Yun. Fire Dragon looked angry. Fortunately, you didn't sneak in. Otherwise, you would have been beaten to death. Qin Feiyang was speechless. How could he do such a thing? Now that I've told you, shouldn't you help me? The Fire Dragon looked expectantly at Qin Feiyang's group of 3 and the 2 black dragons. How can I help? Go with you to the Devil Palace to die. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. What do you mean by courting death? Don't we have the Black Dragon and the Fire Luan? Both of them are so powerful. If they're discovered, they can definitely escape. But then again, Why do you have two such powerful divine beasts by your side? Fire Dragon had a suspicious look on his face. Many things happened while you were away from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. You will know when you return. As for helping you, we can help you, but not to the Devil Palace. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Where are we going then? Fire Dragon was puzzled. If your suspicions are true, and the Alliance Master and your parents were really plotted against, then this matter definitely has nothing to do with the Devil Palace. Qin Feiyang said. Definitely? Fire Dragon was slightly taken aback. He frowned and said, Are you so sure? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. If it was really the Devil Palace's doing, then Elder Hu wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to deal with the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Don't make it sound so natural. Why? There are only two major forces in the Eastern continent, the Devil Palace and the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Besides the Devil Palace, no one else has the ability to do so. Fire Dragon frowned. If I say it's not, then it's not. As for the reason, you will understand in the future. After saying that, Qin Feiyang lowered his head and became gloomy. If the Alliance Master was really plotted against, then the culprit must be someone close to the Alliance Master. Otherwise, with the Alliance Master strength, even if Elder Hu came with a sovereign divine weapon, he wouldn't be able to do it silently. By the way, who is the closest person to the Alliance Master and your parents? Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Dragon suspiciously. The closest person is definitely me, but I can't possibly harm them. Next would be the Vice Alliance Master, the Hall of Famers, and the 10 Great Elders. Fire Dragon said. Then, does the Alliance Master have any other relatives? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. No, he is alone. Fire Dragon shook his head. In that case, the most suspicious ones are indeed the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers. Qin Feiyang muttered. The 10 Great Elders are also possible, Zhao Xiaojin said. Qin Feiyang nodded and then transmitted his voice. The biggest suspect is still the Vice Alliance Master, because he colluded with the Blood Hall. This proves that he has bad intentions. That's right. Let's start with this person, Madman secretly said. Why are you guys exchanging glances over there? Is there something that you don't want me to know? Fire Dragon glared at Qin Feiyang and the other two. No, just thinking about various hypotheses. Then come back with us first. I also promise you that if there is a chance, I will definitely help you investigate. Qin Feiyang smiled. Go back to do what? Fire Dragon frowned. Go back and cultivate well. With your cultivation, even if you find out the person who secretly harmed your parents and the Alliance Master, do you have the ability to avenge them? Qin Feiyang smiled. Fire Dragon was silent. Let's go. Wandering around outside like a headless fly all day long won't yield any results. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. All right. Fire Dragon nodded and then said, But what I told you today, you must keep it a secret, especially the Vice Alliance Master and the others. You don't need to remind us. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, By the way, you didn't go to the trial ground for sightseeing, right? I went to find the Alliance Master and my parents. Not only the trial ground, I searched the entire Azure Wave Snow Mountain, but I didn't find any clues. Fire Dragon sighed, his expression full of worry. You are too naive. Even if they are still alive, the culprit can't hide them in the Azure Wave Snow Mountain. Qin Feiyang shook his head. In any case, I still think that Demon Palace is the most suspicious. Fire Dragon coldly snorted. Don't jump to conclusions too early. The truth is often beyond your imagination. Let's go. Qin Feiyang smiled and opened an altar. The group jumped up one after another. Azure Wave Snow Mountain. When Qin Feiyang and the others arrived at the boundary, they happened to see a group of people coming out of the boundary. This group of people was led by the Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers, followed by the 9 elders. They were all emitting a murderous aura. And when the 2 groups met, they were all a little stunned. "Master, where are you going?" Qin Feiyang was the first to speak. "We're going to save it. Why is it with you?" The Vice Alliance Master pointed at the fire dragon and said in shock. Qin Feiyang and the others nodded in realization. It turned out that these big shots had mobilized so many people to rescue the fire dragon. What a coincidence! Qin Feiyang was about to speak. Buzz! But at this time, the voice of the divine sound transmission, stone, sounded. Everyone looked at the Vice Alliance Master. The Vice Alliance Master took out the divine sound transmission stone, and a shadow suddenly appeared. It was Zhuo Tiansheng. Looking at the Vice Alliance Master, Zhuo Tiansheng immediately said excitedly, "Master, the fire dragon has been rescued. You don't have to come. As for the people who rescued the fire dragon, I guess you will never guess." He even deliberately kept them in suspense. It should be Mo Yuan and Mo Wu Hui. The Vice Alliance Master glanced at Qin Feiyang and Frenzy standing opposite him and said lightly, "How do you know?" Zhuo Tianqing was stunned. "They are standing in front of me now. And you, since you reported it in time, I will also record your merit." The Vice Alliance Master said, "Thank you, Master." When Zhuo Tianqing heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. The Vice Alliance Master nodded and turned off the divine sound transmission stone. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "What is going on?" "It's like this. Xiaojin asked us to accompany her back to pay respects to her parents and brother." Qin Feiyang gave a simple explanation of the speech that he had prepared beforehand. "So that's how it is." The group of big shots suddenly understood. Then, the Vice Alliance Master looked at Fire Dragon and said angrily, "Why did you go to the Demon Palace? Don't you know our relationship with the Demon Palace? This time, you were lucky to have met Mo Yuan and the others. Otherwise, even if we rushed over to save you immediately, you would have already died in the hands of the Demon Palace." "I know." Hualong had an impatient look on his face. "You're still not happy with a few words of advice?" The Vice Alliance Master also had a helpless look on his face. "Don't say too much. It's fine as long as you come back safely. On the other hand, our 2 disciples have made a great contribution. How do you think we should reward them?" The Hall of Famers chuckled. "Indeed, we should reward them." The Vice Alliance Master nodded, looked at Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and laughed. "Tell me, what do you want?" "Is there even a need to say it? It must be a supreme-level heaven-defying divine object." Frenzy chuckled. Ugh! The Vice Alliance Master and Frenzy were stunned. They then turned around and looked at the 9 great elders. "There's nothing else. Let's go back." "All right." The 9 great elders nodded and looked at Frenzy in amusement. They then turned around and entered the barrier, leaving like lightning. The Vice Alliance Master and the Hall of Famers ignored Qin Feiyang and Frenzy and left without looking back. "Old man, what do you mean? Didn't you say you wanted a reward? What kind of attitude is this?" Frenzy hurriedly shouted. "Stop shouting. Even the Vice Alliance Master and Hall Master only have one supreme-level heaven-defying divine artifact. How can they give it to you? Fire Dragon, shut up. Even if you don't have one, you can still change the reward. It's not like you have to have a supreme-level heaven-defying divine object." Frenzy had a look of displeasure. "Let's go. What's there to complain about?" Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He stepped into the barrier and nodded to Zhang Diyuan beside him. Then he left. "What do you call that? Right? Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. It's like drawing water with a sieve." Xiaojin glanced at Frenzy with schadenfreude and also left. Black Dragon, Fire Yuan, and Fire Dragon all had smiles on their faces. Frenzy looked at the 2 men and 3 beasts angrily and glanced at Zhang Diyuan. Seeing that he was also forcefully holding back his laughter, he said angrily, "What are you laughing at? Do you believe that I'll get old man Qi to cripple you?" Zhang Diyuan's expression stiffened, and he quickly waved his hand. "No, no, no, we're all on the same side. Let's talk nicely." Humph! Madman snorted through his nose and left as well. Zhang Diyuan finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. However, there was a trace of fear in his eyes that was even stronger than before. The rise of these two brothers was already unstoppable. Being controlled by this child might not be a bad thing. Chapter 32:12. Returning to the Hall of the Exalted, Zhao Shaojin glanced at Yi Tian's cave abode number 1, sighed, and entered cave abode number 2. Qin Feiyang and Madman were about to enter as well, but seeing the fire dragon still following them, they couldn't help but frown. "Why aren't you going back? Why are you following us?" Madman looked at it suspiciously. "I'm all alone now. If I don't follow you, who should I follow?" The fire dragon looked at the two with a pitiful look. "You're still all alone? Take a look for yourself. Who has a higher status than you in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance?" Madman rolled his eyes. "What's the use of having a status? They're all polite to me on the surface, but who knows what they'll do behind my back? I'm worried and scared now. I'm worried about my parents and the Alliance leader. I'm afraid that they'll plot against me too. So I have to find a backer." The fire dragon sighed. Madman was stunned and speechless. "If you want to find a backer, you should find an expert like the Vice Alliance leader. What kind of backer are my brother and I? We're just two half-step sovereigns. You guys aren't much, but they're strong." The fire dragon pointed at Black Dragon and Fire Luan and chuckled. Qin Feiyang and Madman shook their heads and smiled bitterly. It seemed that this guy was going to rely on them. "All right then, you can stay in cave abode number 4 for the time being. Brother Black Dragon, Brother Fire Luan, you two accompany it so that it won't be worried all day." Qin Feiyang looked at Black Dragon and Fire Luan and said, "Accompany it? Doesn't that mean we have to protect it and be its personal bodyguards?" Black Dragon was a little reluctant. "Don't say that. We're brothers. Don't be so distant. We'll share blessings and misfortunes together." The fire dragon smiled flatteringly. "Who's your brother?" Both Black Dragon and Fire Luan had a look of disdain. "Do you guys still have any humanity? I've already fallen to such a state. Can't you guys be understanding? Is it true that a tiger will be bullied by dogs?" The fire dragon said angrily, "Who are you calling a dog? Why don't you try cursing again?" The Black Dragon and the Black Dragon immediately glared at the fire dragon. "I'm just making an analogy. Don't worry, I won't let you guys protect me for nothing. When I find my parents and the Alliance Master, I promise you guys will enjoy endless glory and wealth." The fire dragon chuckled. "Cough, cough. Do we look like those snobbish divine beasts? What we care about is friendship. Isn't it just protecting you? How simple is that? Let's go, let's go. In the future, the two of us will be inseparable from you. That's right, that's right. In the future, don't mention any benefits to us, glory and wealth. Otherwise, I'll fall out with you." Black Dragon and Fire Lotus angrily rebuked, then put their arms around Fire Dragon's shoulders and walked towards cave abode number 4 like good brothers. In the end, it was the Fire Dragon who was stunned. Why did he change his attitude faster than flipping a book? Sigh. This daddy has finally seen what is called shameless. These two guys are even worse than the white-eyed wolf. Madman's face was dark. Qin Feiyang also couldn't help but feel depressed. Why were all the beasts he encountered like this? "Let's go." Madman turned around and entered the cave abode. Qin Feiyang also entered the cave abode. With a wave of his hand, the law of thunder appeared and sealed the door. Old Qin, do you think the disappearance of the Alliance Master and the Fire Dragon's parents is really related to the Vice Alliance Master? Madman sat beside the tea table and asked with a frown while making tea. This matter is really hard to say. Although the Vice Alliance Master is the most suspicious, others are also possible. Qin Feiyang pondered. Sigh, the situation is somewhat beyond our expectations. I have a feeling that if we really help the Fire Dragon, then we will most likely be involved in an even bigger dispute. Madman shook his head and sighed. I also have the same feeling. However, no matter who is related to this matter, it will be beneficial for us. Qin Feiyang said. What benefits? Madman poured a cup of tea and pushed it in front of Qin Feiyang and asked. Think about it. If the Alliance Master is really killed or imprisoned somewhere, then after we find out the truth, we will be his benefactor. At that time, the Rogue Cultivator Alliance will definitely help us with all their strength, coupled with the support of the Demon Palace. Then we will truly have the capital to contend with the Blood Palace. Qin Feiyang said as he drank his tea. His eyes flickered with a bright light. Makes sense. Madman nodded and also took a sip of tea. He asked, Then, should we keep an eye on the Vice Alliance Master all day long? It's not easy to keep an eye on the Vice Alliance Master. If he released his divine sense on a whim and discovered us, then we will lose our lives. But if we don't keep an eye on him, we won't be able to find out the truth. Qin Feiyang was also in a difficult position for a moment. Madman pondered for a while. Then his eyes suddenly lit up. How about this? Let's pull Yi Tian in. Pull Yi Tian in. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yi Tian is his grandson. Even if he lives with him for a long time, he won't suspect anything. And as long as we can live under the same roof as him, then we will definitely be able to find out something. Madman's eyes flashed. That's not good. What if Yi Tian leaks it? Qin Feiyang frowned. So this is a gamble, Madman said. This gamble is too big. Let's forget it. Qin Feiyang shook his head. After all, they were grandfather and grandson. If Yi Tian leaked it, then the situation would be even worse. Then, can you think of a better way? Madman asked. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while, then let out a long breath and said, No matter how perfect a person is, there will be a time when they reveal a flaw. Let's wait patiently. Wait, Madman frowned. Mo Yuan, Mo Wuhui, are you guys here? Suddenly, a voice came from outside. Third Xing. Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. They quickly got up and dispersed the thunder law that was blocking the door. You're all here. Third Xing looked at the two and smiled. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. Third Xing took out 2 metal boxes and said with a smile, This is a reward from the Vice Alliance leader and the Hall of Famers. Reward? Qin Feiyang and Madman were stunned. They hurriedly went forward and took the metal boxes. I heard the two of you say that these are 2 legendary-level, heaven-defying artifacts. Frankly speaking, I'm a little envious of you guys. How long have you been in the Alliance? You've already gotten so many legendary-level, heaven-defying artifacts. Third Xing shook his head. Ha ha, Madman smiled proudly and said, That can only mean that our ability is outstanding. Third Xing laughed involuntarily and nodded. Your ability is indeed obvious to all, but you should have heard of the saying, The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other with a trace of suspicion in their eyes. Why did Third Xing suddenly say this? Don't misunderstand. I'm not referring to our Rogue Cultivator Alliance, but other forces, such as the Devil Palace. If they know of your talent, I'm afraid they won't let you grow so easily. So when you leave the Azure Wave Snow Mountain in the future, you must remember to keep a low profile. Third Xing warned. You scared me. I thought that someone from the Rogue Cultivator Alliance wanted to deal with us. Madman patted his chest. One of you is the Vice Alliance leader's disciple. The other is the Hall of Famer's disciple, who would dare to deal with you. All right, I'll go back and report. Good luck. Third Xing smiled, turned around, and soared into the air, disappearing from Qin Feiyang and Madman's line of sight like lightning. Qin Feiyang and Madman also couldn't wait to return to the cave and open the metal boxes. Immediately, rays of dazzling divine light surged out from the metal boxes. There were 2 metal boxes, one containing a neat set of armor, and the other containing a fiery red longsword. They are indeed legendary level, heaven-defying artifacts. Madman's eyes were filled with excitement. Qin Feiyang asked, "Last time, the Hall of Famers gave you a weapon or armor." "Weapon," Madman secretly said. "The Vice Alliance leader gave me a piece of armor back then. In other words, this armor should be given to you, and this long sword should be given to me. In this way, our defense and attack are both complete." Qin Feiyang secretly smiled. "I didn't expect these 2 old men to be so attentive." Madman bared his teeth. "It seems that they really treat us as their personal disciples." Qin Feiyang sighed. "Then, if we still investigate them now, wouldn't it seem that we are too heartless?" Madman secretly asked. "That's a different matter. If there is no problem with them, we will definitely respect them and love them. But if there is a problem, then we can only be heartless people." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "All right." Madman nodded and said with a smile, "This armor is mine." After saying that, he dripped his blood to recognize it as his master. Qin Feiyang also took out a long sword and dripped his blood to recognize it as his master. This sword was 3 feet long and 3 fingers wide. Its hilt was shaped like a qilin, so it was called the Qilin Divine Sword. After Madman dripped his blood to recognize it as his master, he smiled and said, "Now it's time to tame them." "Of course." Qin Feiyang smiled. Legendary level, heaven-defying artifacts had their own consciousness. So just dripping blood to recognize them as their master wasn't enough. They had to make these 2 artifacts, follow them wholeheartedly. Swish! The 2 entered the Black Tortoise world and directly laid their cards on the table without any hesitation. The process was similar to when Qin Feiyang first tamed the Spectre Battle armor. At first, the 2 artifacts were shocked when they found out about Qin Feiyang and Madman's identity. They also hid something in their hearts. But when they found out that the Black Tortoise world was an independent world and they could even cultivate in the source land, they immediately became as obedient as a lamb. Time flew by. Outside, half a year had passed, and in the Black Tortoise world, more than 100,000 years had passed. With Madman's help, Qin Feiyang finally comprehended the 4th profound of the law of slaughter, but he had no clue about the 5th profound of the law of cause and effect. Qin Feiyang also didn't force it, and on this day, half a year later, suddenly, a shocking piece of news came from the Demon Hall. The 4 superforces of the Sky Cloud world, Demon Palace, Blood Palace, Sky Palace, Deity's Palace, and the slightly weaker Rogue Cultivator Alliance, were going to hold an exchange meeting 3 days later. Of course, anyone with a bit of brain knew that this so-called exchange meeting was definitely not as simple as an exchange meeting. Chapter 32:13. Naturally, the Hall of the Exalted was also talking about this. Our Rogue Cultivator Alliance is actually going to participate in the exchange. Devil Hall, Heavenly Hall, Immortal Hall, Blood Hall. Which one of them isn't stronger than us? Aren't we just asking for humiliation if we join in the fun? Not only the ordinary members, but even the disciples of the Hall of the Exalted had no confidence in the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Of course, there were also people who supported it. The current Rogue Cultivator Alliance was already the super overlord of the Eastern continent. Could they have some dignity and not boost the morale of others while diminishing their own prestige? Besides, this was not a battle between the higher-ups, but a competition between the younger generation. What was there to be afraid of? The reason why the four major forces were strong was because they had the sovereign divine weapon. If the Rogue Cultivator Alliance also had the sovereign divine weapon, they might not be weaker than the four major forces. As the situation became more and more intense, two factions began to fight over this matter. One faction, led by the Hall of Famers, did not support the participation of the exchange. The other faction, led by the vice leader, supported the participation of the exchange. What? It will start in 3 days? At the same time, Qin Feiyang and Frenzy also received Elder Hua's message. They were quite shocked. This was too fast. After the announcement, no matter what, they should have more time to prepare. That's right. Elder Hua nodded. Then, where is the location of the exchange? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Sky Cloud Ocean. You've been there before. It's the island where the little rabbit is. This place is called Sky Cloud Island, and the little rabbit is the referee of this exchange. Elder Hua said. The little rabbit is the referee? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy looked at each other. Don't underestimate the little rabbit. Its strength is not simple. Also, just this morning, a portrait appeared in various cities in the eastern continent. Elder Hua could not help but frown as he said this. Portrait? Qin Feiyang and Frenzy were stunned. Yes, the appearance of this portrait is very strange. No one knows who spread it, and no one knows the person in the portrait, so I'm going to ask you. Elder Hua said. Qin Feiyang and Madman looked at each other and said to Elder Hua, Let us see. Elder Hua took out a portrait from his chest. In the portrait was a middle-aged man with a face full of vicissitudes. He was dressed in a black robe with a tall and straight figure and a sharp gaze. The most eye-catching thing was that he was carrying a 1.5-meter long broadsword on his back. It's him. Looking at the portrait, Qin Feiyang and the madman's eyes trembled. You really do know each other. Elder Hua's eyes flickered as he asked, Who is he? However, Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear to him and stared at the middle-aged man on the screen. Their faces were extremely gloomy. They were all too familiar with this face, and they would never forget it for the rest of their lives, because the person in the portrait was the Sword Emperor. Since his portrait had appeared in all the major cities of the eastern continent, it must have been done by the Blood Hall. Who is it? Elder Hua looked at them suspiciously. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and looked at Elder Hua. Do you know our purpose in coming to the Sky Cloud realm? Elder Hua shook his head. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, One of our purposes in coming to the Sky Cloud realm is to rescue the person in the portrait. This, Elder Hua was stunned and asked, You mean this person is your companion? That's right. When we were in the lower realm, someone kidnapped 4 of our companions. This person is called the Sword Emperor, and he was one of them. Qin Feiyang nodded. Was it Elder Hai from the Blood Hall who kidnapped them? Elder Hua asked. No, but it's related to the Blood Hall. And now, as soon as the exchange conference was announced, the portrait of the Sword Emperor appeared in all the major cities of the eastern continent. Do you know why? The Blood Hall is using the Sword Emperor to threaten us and force us to participate in the exchange conference. If we don't go, they will kill the Sword Emperor. Qin Feiyang's face sank. He and Frenzied had already thought that the Blood Hall would definitely try to force them to show up, but they didn't expect that they would use such a method. I see. Elder Hua nodded in realization, but then he shook his head and said, The Blood Hall is really despicable. What are you going to do now? What else can we do? We can only participate. Qin Feiyang said. Since the Blood Hall has carefully planned this scheme, they will definitely do something in the exchange conference. I'm afraid that you will be in danger if you go. Elder Hua was a little worried. Even if we lose our lives, we must go. Qin Feiyang's eyes were firm. No matter what, he had to ensure the safety of the Sword Emperor and the other three. Elder Hu asked, "Then are you going to participate as the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Hall of Fame disciples, or as our Devil Hall's core disciples?" "Logically speaking, we will definitely participate as your Devil Hall's core disciples. After all, you have already announced that we are Devil Hall's disciples." But when Qin Feiyang said this, he couldn't help but frown. "Are you worried about exposing Mo Wuyuan and Mo Wuhui's identities?" Elder Hu asked. "That's right. My Karma Law and senior brother Feng Zi's death law have already been exposed. When we participate in the exchange conference, we will definitely have to go all out against the Blood Hall, Heavenly Hall, and Divine Hall's disciples. At that time, the Karma Law, Death Law, and other laws will be exposed. It will definitely arouse the suspicion of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. Why is it that the power of law that Mo Yuan and Mo Wuhui control is exactly the same as the power of law that Qin Feiyang and Madman Mo control? If that's the case, they will naturally think that we might be Mo Yuan and Mo Wuhui." Qin Feiyang said. "That makes sense." Elder Hu nodded. "It doesn't matter if our identities are exposed. I'm just worried that it won't be easy to investigate the Alliance Master's whereabouts in the future." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Now that the situation is urgent, why do we still care about the Alliance Master?" Feng Zi stared at Qin Feiyang. "Phew!" Qin Feiyang let out a long breath and nodded. "Then let's do it." Although the Alliance Master was stronger than the Sword Emperor and the other three, in terms of importance to Qin Feiyang, even 100 Alliance Masters added together couldn't compare to the Sword Emperor and the other three. Elder Hu glanced at the two and sighed. "To be honest, even if you participate in the exchange conference, you won't be able to solve the root of the problem." "I know. Even if we escape this calamity, the Blood Hall can still use the Sword Emperor and the other three to threaten us. So if we want to completely eradicate them, we have to save them from the Blood Hall. My original plan was to find the Alliance Master and resolve the internal strife of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance. At that time, we will unite the Rogue Cultivator Alliance and the Devil Hall. This way, the chances of saving them will be greater. But I didn't expect the Blood Hall to be so impatient and not give me any time to prepare." Qin Feiyang sighed. "It's not the Blood Hall's fault. It's your fault." Elder Hu shook his head. "Blame us?" Feng Zi was stunned. "That's right. You have displayed such amazing talent and ability. Not to mention the Blood Hall. Even my Devil Hall can feel threatened. The Blood Hall naturally won't allow you to continue growing like this." Elder Hu shook his head and smiled. "From what you said, being talented is also a mistake." Feng Zi was stunned. "What do you think?" Elder Hu chuckled. "Sigh. Looks like I can't be so outstanding in my next life." Feng Zi was speechless. The corner of Elder Hu's mouth twitched, and he smiled. "All right then. Prepare yourselves. With your current cultivation, let alone the Blood Hall, I'm afraid you won't even be able to defeat the core disciples of the four major forces." "Then how strong are the core disciples of the four major forces?" Feng Zi was curious. The core disciples of the four major forces are actually similar to the disciples of the Rogue Cultivator Alliance's Hall of Fame. Once their cultivation reaches the greater mastery stage, their disciples' names will be removed. So, the strongest disciples participating in this competition are only at the lesser mastery stage. However, the Sovereign Realm is different from the Imperishable Realm. You can use all kinds of methods to fight those in the Imperishable Realm, but not in the Sovereign Realm. That's because the key to the Sovereign Realm is the power of laws. For example, the divine art that increases your cultivation is useless in the Sovereign Realm. Elder Hu said. "Useless?" Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi raised their brows. That's right. The sovereign realm increases one's cultivation by comprehending the power of laws. The divine art that increases your cultivation is just an ordinary divine art, so it can't increase the cultivation of sovereigns. Taking a step back, even if it can increase one's cultivation, like you, Qin Feiyang, who can reach the lesser mastery stage with the help of the divine art, what's the use? In the end, you've only grasped 1/5 profound, while a true lesser mastery stage sovereign grasps 3/5 profound. I don't think I need to explain the difference between 1/5 profound meaning and 3/5 profound meanings. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. Elder Hu smiled. When Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi heard this, they couldn't help but frown. In the past, they had thought that when they reached the half-step sovereign realm, with the rising dragon art and blood devil domain, they would definitely be able to fight against lesser mastery stage sovereigns and even greater mastery stage sovereigns. However, when they heard Elder Hu's words, they realized how naive they were. There was a fundamental difference between the sovereign realm and the imperishable realm. The sovereign realm comprehended the power of laws. Below the imperishable realm, it increased the strength of one's divine power and divine soul. The two couldn't be mixed together. What about the other divine arts? Qin Feiyang asked. Ordinary divine arts don't have much effect in the sovereign realm, unless it's a heaven-defying divine art. Of course, there are exceptions. For example, your concealment divine art. This kind of pure support-type divine art doesn't have much effect. Elder Huo explained. The key is that the concealment divine art doesn't have much effect in battle. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Unless the opponent was weaker than him, the concealment divine art would be forcefully destroyed by the opponent's aura. Therefore, the two of you have to be prepared. Ignoring everything else, at least try to raise your cultivation to lesser mastery stage before the battle. Only then will you have a chance of winning, Elder Hu said. All right, lesser mastery stage. Qin Feiyang and Feng Zi lowered their heads and remained silent. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.